What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's DH Thorne here. How's everybody doing tonight? I don't see a lot of people chatting in the chat box, but that usually starts after a few minutes, so hopefully my audio is good. We'll see if I get my check in a minute from my sound check specialist. We'll see if it's working out good. In the meantime, let me light some incense here, actually. It's kind of dreary in here without it. Okay. Thank you, honey. Nobody's chatting? I might have to refresh the chat box. I bet you that's what I gotta do. I'll be amazed. Usually there's somebody saying hi by now. Oh, there we go. Hey, Johan, what's up, buddy? And thank you, brother. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your gift, man. I really appreciate it. Make sure you ask a question, though. You get to ask a question when you do that. That's like half the reason you guys get to do that, so that I see your question first. Thank you, John. Thank you so much. I appreciate that compliment, actually. That's really nice of you. So yeah, I figured, there's not a whole lot of stuff to talk about that's really necessary in a lot of ways. So it's a little bit of just kind of me being a little selfish and wanting to hang out with everybody tonight and just put on a good show and sort of shoot the stuff with everybody. That's why it's going to be kind of a question and answer question. Question and answer night. I don't have anything really deep on my mind yet, but you guys often ask me some questions and we talk about some things, and when we do, something big always comes up and we get some kind of a crazy rant coming out of me. Custom Made Incense, what's going on, my sister? How you doing? Susan Schultz. You're from Australia? You're from Australia? No, I'm just kidding. You're from Australia? That's really awesome. I have another friend from Australia. I don't talk to her very much. Adversarial Self, welcome. Pennsylvania's looking pretty good to me right now. I'm actually tempted to move there if I can find the right area to go to. I kind of want to avoid, like real fundamentalist areas of any state, but I don't want to move into a city. I kind of want to move into some place where I could get a couple of acres by myself, where I could have a little bonfire in the back and not raise a lot of eyebrows. So Pennsylvania's a cool state. I do like visiting there. Philly's my favorite city. I haven't been to Pittsburgh yet, but Philly's my favorite city to visit. I like it better than New York. Manhattan's kind of crappy. Jennifer Vatsa, what's up? Mr. Higglesworth, hello. Lucas Vos, what's up? I'm doing that that romper room thing again. I see Johan and Stella and John and Stella, my brother. What's going on, man? So, John Stone says, I did an evocation of Paimon, King Paimon, the other night. You inspired me with your video. Great, that's awesome. One of the things that, King Paimon is like he's just so popular, and it's one of his traits is very much about popularity. Not quite like King Beleth, but he is very much into the arts. Okay, and a lot of the arts has to go along with, of course, becoming recognized for having skills in the arts, right? So that's actually a big piece of it. And so being social, being skilled in those ways is also a big piece of it. So King Paimon's a very popular spirit, and a lot of people in the entertainment industry and the arts community actually work with him, whether they know it or not, but a lot of them do intentionally. Very interesting. And he's also, it's okay, John, don't worry about forgetting the king part. It happens. But just try to remember, he does like, and that's the thing that I and many others have found out, is that he does prefer it if you keep that title. There's, he's not, he was a king in life, we'll put it that way. Steroid, thank you so much again for your generous donation. You always come through every time I do a stream, and I really appreciate it, man. And again, my door's always open with your situation you've been talking to me about. I mean, over the past couple of weeks, you've essentially donated for me enough for a full consultation. So at some point, man, if you really want to get on a video chat or something and you want to talk over anything that's going on, if you ever need an emergency talk with Magical Life Coach, I'm here for you, dude. I will absolutely just message me. You know the deal. Let's see. Santa Muerte is very powerful. She changed my life. Actually, a friend of mine recently encouraged me to work with some of the death current spirits a little bit more directly. This is not Santa Muerte. This is actually my Azazel idol, because Azazel and I have been, we'll say, conspiring again. It's been a little while, because Azazel and I don't always see eye to eye. He and I sometimes have differences of attitude, we'll say, but he usually catches me on my bullshit. So that's kind of like why we don't always get along so well. But Azazel is definitely, part of the reason why I think I've been going through certain things on the side and having a little bit of difficulty with my usual direct connection with spiritual forces, is because when Azazel enters your sphere, he tends to push out other things. He tends to be not jealous, but he tends to be, work with me alone for now. Don't be distracted. And that's what usually happens with that. So when Azazel's in the picture, I kind of I take a break. And what I find is that he will permit me to work with other fallen watchers, but not with many other things. The goetic spirit's not always much. A little bit here and there. But he likes to step in and say, focus on me for a little while. So what happened was, the other night I made this post on Facebook, actually, so in case you guys follow me on Facebook, you know what I'm probably going to bring up. I had gotten this brand new sword, which is sitting next to me in a place of honor because it's pretty freaking cool. And I had gotten this sword to just to collect, because I am a collector, but I used to be a very avid practitioner. Not so much anymore. It's been 10 or 15 years since I stepped inside a dojo, and about actually more than that, it's been about 20 or 30 years since I stepped inside a dojo of any kind, and about 10 or 15 years before I had a sincere sparring session with any kind of sword, be it Hema or Budo. So for those of you who don't know, I am trained in several martial arts, at least I used to be. Now I'm just a fat fool who needs to work on himself, and that's part of why I had this interesting communion the other night, when I went out for a walk with my new sword. I went in my backyard and I walked around in the dark, and I saw a bat. And bats are messengers and conveyors of spirits. They're very they bring the dead from one place to another in a lot of cultures. And I'm watching this bat, and I feel Legion coming to me, and I start calling to him. And I see him I have this, not a trail in my backyard, because I got it's not that small, but it's kind of small to me, backyard. And there's a line of trees, because the way my father-in-law set it up was he wanted to grow some of these trees on his property for our business when I used to work at the nursery. So we have trees growing like in a perfect row, because they were meant, this way he could use that as a tax thing. And no, I'm just kidding. But this was a way that he could prepare the trees for the future. And the ones he didn't use, because for whatever reason they just stayed there, and so they're in a beautiful row of trees, and it went really well in that way. It looks really pretty. So you get like a little walk that's got it's like lined with trees. It's really beautiful, even though it's very small. So as I'm standing there, I see this Legion shadow. The only way to describe Legion is he doesn't show up as an individual. Legion shows up as a crowd. And when he's not a crowd, it's just a big blob of darkness. It's just, the entire area will just suddenly get an unnatural darkness, kind of like you're adjusting the contrast on a video. And he starts moving towards me, and I'm listening to him, and I'm having a little trouble because I've been so distracted lately. Between world events and a lot of other things going on, I couldn't really make the strongest connection at first, and then finally I'm hearing the whispers, and I'm feeling him there, and he was only there for a moment before Ranzael shows up. Now, this is kind of a funny story, because it's like one spirit to the next, and I'm standing there talking to Ranzael, and Ranzael and I are talking, and I asked both of them, Legion and Ranzael, what's going on? What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? Why am I feeling maybe a little bit of not the wrong things, but maybe not the right things, So Legion and Ranzael are there, and they're telling me that, crises may be coming, are coming. I mean, literally are coming. And they already put the bug in my ear to start getting in better shape. I went on keto about a week ago. If I can get back down to the mid 200s, that'd be cool. I'd be like able to do everything I used to do perfectly again instead of feeling slow. And of course I can still do all those things, but I'm like slow compared to how I used to be. So getting back down to a more healthy weight again where I used to be was a priority, but also picking back up on my training and interests in martial arts and things of that nature. I'm kind of like really, these things are going to get, dangerous. And the answer was, prepare. Just prepare. Don't worry about what's coming. In the sense that don't be fearful. Don't say, oh no, something's going to happen. No, just prepare, because things are going to get rough in the next period of time. So whether that means it gets rough for me or not, don't know. So I immediately called upon Azazel, and it was like when I did that, all of the clouds parted, and I suddenly had whispers and voices. I suddenly felt the presences that I require, and Azazel was just like, "Come on, let's go study some firearms. Let's go back to our firearm studies, to our blade studies, to your basics, and get yourself in better shape and start getting back on your practices." And sure enough, the next day I pull out my son's airsoft pistol and did a few drills, and I didn't really lose anything, so that was good. I was double tapping the trees like it was nothing, and I felt great to do it. But I'm a lot slower than I should be. Instead of jogging around and running around the backyard, I'm kind of like moseying around the backyard, if that makes sense. I'm just not in the shape I was 2-3 years ago even. So I got to get some of that back, and that's not a problem. I'll get it back. It'll happen, especially with Azazel's help. So let me go back. I've seen a few more people pop up. I've seen some questions and some patrons and some other things. So let me respond as I get to them. Tara says she's going to join the mentorship next month. Listen, whenever you can, I value you as a person, whenever you're able, and I know your situation, so don't force yourself or rush. Don't worry about it. You'll always be able to chat me up occasionally with what you got questions on. It won't be a problem. But when you're able and you're stable and you're in a place where you can, we'll take care of that. And I appreciate that, Tara. I know you're a true blue friend and a true blue fan. And we will definitely talk more as time goes on. Let's see. Envy says, Catch you on your bullshit is so accurate in my experience with him. He really is. And in fact, one of the stories I like telling about him is when I first started working with him, I was getting back into magic, and one of the things I liked to do was to ask a spirit for a sign. I usually ask a spirit, give me a sign. I really like audible visual signs. I really like things to be profound. And I'll get it in incense smoke, I'll get it in flames, but sometimes I really want a thump in the wall. I really want that thunderclap overhead. And I get it quite often, actually, if I'm sincere in my request. Like Vinay, King Vinay is man, he will roar for you. He will make things happen. Whenever I've called him and asked for an audible sign and I was sincere and I felt it was right, because you can feel when it's right to do that. You can feel when it's not appropriate. But when I felt it was right and I called for that, I had the whole dish rack just collapsed in the sink and made a loud crash. It was quite amusing. It was quite funny, like right on cue. Let's see. I'm going to say honey rhesus. I hope I got that right. Honey prescriptions, maybe. That might be another way to put it. The daughter of steroids. What up? What's up? What's up? It's awesome to meet you. You decided to join tonight again. Thanks so much for your help. Thank you, honey. And I know everything's going on with you guys. And again, doors open for you as well and your father whenever you guys need to talk. You guys have definitely paid it forward enough that, I was always willing to help you guys anyway, but you're entitled to when you need it, we'll schedule a live consultation some night, and we'll chat on video if you guys want, if you need it. And if not, I'll keep it on the books. You got one coming. Okay, we got an actual question from Johan. Johan says, what's your take on the demonic enns? Just heard of them recently. So there's controversy a little bit with S. Connolly, and I don't like to get into controversy as much as I can help it, because the way I see it, if it's working, it's not really controversial. If people are legitimately using a system and it's working for them, there is no controversy. This is spirituality. This is not rocket science. This is spirituality. This is a system, especially on the left-hand path, where we have to seek and find our own truths and then utilize those truths without hesitation. You should never, ever, ever, ever be, feel like what you're doing is somehow wrong because some jackass like me says so. If you feel it is right, then by all means you're probably on the right track. That doesn't mean that you can't do it wrong. I shouldn't say it quite like like whatever I say is wrong. But what I'm saying is that you have to have discernment and to be able to decide that what is true for you is true for you, and it doesn't have to be a conflict. So that's the first thing I'd say about the enns, because as Connolly has been with certain issues, people have brought up very valid questions and concerns. That doesn't mean she's a liar. It doesn't mean she's a fraud. It doesn't mean she doesn't practice. And that's a very important thing to say. I've never really spoken to her directly, although I've had a few interactions with her on Facebook, obviously as an author and an occultist. We travel in the same circles, and she's always been very polite and very respectful. And I do recommend, the Complete Book of Demonolatry to a lot of people. It is probably, besides my book, Become the Maelstrom, it is probably one of the best. If your interest is demonolatry, demonic theurgy, infernal theurgy, it's a good system. It's a functional system. It's a little simplistic, the first book, but you can get add-ons for it where she's got ritual elements in there that's a little bit more useful. But it's an excellent first book. There's nothing wrong with it. So again, Connolly's work, no complaints, very good. The enns and the origins of the enns is a little bit of a question for me. A lot of the time, what I have discovered is that spiritual dialogue is nonverbal. That means there is no legitimate language, no material language that they speak. The closest that I've found is glossolalia or syllabalization, which is what I've used in a lot of my rituals. I call them phonetic sigils. And I find the most fundamental consonant sounds to a word, and I use that. And this is why a lot of people have a lot of success using Hebrew, as that's one of the older languages, and the sounds that it comes from are of spiritual nature. But enns are like a mantra. Enns by themselves, if we're looking at them, sort of clinically, if we're looking at them through a lens of technical details rather than are they real or not, enns are a mantra. And there are enough meanings behind enough of the words, you can put together a meaning for each enn. And they can be very useful. I used them for a while. I've never had a problem using them. I generally don't use enns, however, because I feel that in my level of what I do, I want to use language that I'm given. I want to use the methods that I'm shown by them to work with. So if you're just starting out, or if you're feeling a little unsure, and you want something to make you feel magical, and you want something that will help you go into a trance, I think Tara said they're very good at entering trances and things like that. That was Johan. They're like mantras. He said it was like mantras, and I think Tara said something about they're good for trances. Then, by all means, that's what I would use, and I wouldn't worry about it. But do I think that they truly came from demons coming to someone? Do I feel like they came from a demon and was given to a, royal demonolatry family? Probably not. I don't know about that. You have to remember, I believe when she originally wrote the Complete Book of Demonolatry, it was in a different era, and we're a little bit more open-minded in some ways now about what is legitimate and what is not. We don't have to have an origin story for everything we do. It's okay now to step forward and say, this is what I heard from a spirit. I don't know if it's true or not, but see if it resonates. And so, it's not really an issue anymore. Does that mean that she made them up, though? No, I don't think so. I really don't think, if she did, I think she made them up the same way I've made up sigils, if that makes sense. See, this is where it gets kind of stupid. This is why I don't like the controversy part, because as far as I understand it and see it, if the spirits gave her those enns, or gave someone close to her who might have the last name Ducante, whatever, then so be it. Then that's what they are. And I would just use them as such. I wouldn't question it like that. So Not saying she's making it up. I'm not saying that Ducante's made it up. I'm saying that, is it something that came back from the 1500s, 1600s, from ancient times? I wasn't there. I wasn't there. And I've often believed that I don't like using languages or words that I don't know what they mean. And it's very easy for someone to create a spell out of magic words, essentially, that when replicated empowers them. So I generally, even if I trust the person, I ask them for the English translations, and I work and create my own sigils. It's one of the reasons why I've created phonetic sigils, is because it's very important to me that I be able to turn things into a mantra, turn them into a sigil essentially, but make them audible for rituals if I need to do chant work. So if I'm in a ritual, I'll have my invocation. I have a book of sacred invocations. I'll read from that book, and between each or every other stanza or whatever is a repetition of a phonetic sigil, which is usually the spirit's name or a very short sentence about them, which I give the full sigil treatment to. And it may be, I may actually make a visual sigil, or I'll just make it an audible sigil. And when I'm making an audible sigil, I follow a similar pattern as I take out the vowels, I eliminate extra consonants, and then I scramble the order, and then I chant them in a specific way. And if you want to find out exactly more about that, that is also on my Patreon. It's not hard. It'd be basic. I've done a video about this before. I think it's on my playlist. It should be in my videos, the occult playlist on verbal sigils. So you can absolutely use those to contact spirits, and using their names is a very valid way. You have to understand names have power. So hopefully I touched all the bases with that. Hopefully that answered everything. Again, I'm not trying to go toe-to-toe with S. Connolly and say she's right or wrong or anything like that. Not trying to embed myself in the controversy, but that is my opinion. And it is just that. It is just an opinion, and it could be proven wrong. So I do respect the work she's done in the community. I do respect everything that's been done because of her. I really respect the ability that she's had to put these things in book form and do so successfully. So, yeah, that's about all I can say about enns. And we'll move on. So let's see here. All right, I missed a whole bunch of messages here. Tara says, he's quick, long live, he's quick, LOL, King Vina. He sure is. I mean, he never lets me down. I'm very, I don't ask for his help unless I need it, because when I do, it's like right away, and I almost feel like I got a genie in a bottle, where it's like if I asked for too many things, he's gonna be like, you're out of wishes. He doesn't want weakness, but at the same time, here's the funny thing that I found with King Vinay, okay? And King Vinay can be traced, I believe, back to Mahis from Egypt. I believe they're the same, they're different expressions of the same energy, the same consciousness. This being seems to sort of be a little impatient, especially if you don't really need him. But if you're in a bad situation, you are desperate for help, you're being abused, you're having problems, you need, a problem taken care of right away. I like Vinay because when he does show up and help, it is literally like a light switch, and the problems get solved within days at most, utterly, at most. So, hey, Behemoth X, what's up, brother? And Seeking Serpent, what's up, guys? Yeah, Behemoth says he trusts her, and I agree. I pretty much trust her. Is that to say that there is an embellishment? I don't know. I think that all occultists embellish something somewhere, whether it's just how they dress, how they act, how they film things. Everybody does something to put things in the best light. So I think that could be a source of the controversy. Maybe people said, well, wait a minute, where's this person, these Ducante people? Where's the proof? And but my message to anybody who follows that system is, who cares? Who really cares if there's a Ducante family or not? I mean, I don't have a Ducante family backing my work, and yet you guys find value in it. And so by the same token, and this is just an if it's all fraudulent, well, she's still got something valuable from the spirits that inspired that. And I'm not saying she's fraudulent. Please make sure, don't take me out of context, whoever's watching this video. I am not saying she's fraudulent. So just understand that. Cole Smith, thank you for ordering my book. I'm sorry it's late. That's an Amazon thing, but it does suck. Just give them a chance. They do that to me a lot. I live in a spot where when I get my mail delivered, I live right next to a train track and in between a school and a train track. So my driveway, it's like a hidden driveway. And so if they have a different mail delivery that day, a mailman or mailwoman, whatever, if they have a different person delivering that day, I'm going to get things in the bushes at the neighbor's house, in the backyard, the front yard, in the middle of the yellow, in the middle of the line, in the middle of the street on the yellow line. I mean, it can be a pain in the ass to get my mail here. So, they said it hasn't shipped yet. That's possible. With all the COVID and crises going on, depending upon where you are, I know they just had one of their big outlets in California, I think it was, burned down. I think it was California. They just burned to the ground half of it, if not the whole thing. So, yeah, I don't I don't doubt that they're having some problems, but keep your eye on them. I think they say give it 3 or 4 days, and then you message them, and they will help you out. If worst case, they'll send you another copy. So, but if I had any control over that, I would get on it myself. But Amazon does all the fulfillment. Just get with them. They'll take care of you. I've never had a problem getting my Amazon money back or whatever, especially with a failed delivery. They're always right on. They don't even ask. They don't even ask you to prove it. Like, you could probably order 3 computers in a row and say none of them got there and probably get away with it. That's probably not true, but so yeah. What's up, Sam A? How's it doing? Ender Oversoul, what's going on, my brother? And what's this? Hydrus. I never saw you before, my friend. How you doing? I'm just calling you Hydra. I think it's Hydra 6. It's a little far away from my eyes. Yeah, Behemoth says my driveway is like a 1/4 mile long through the bush. It's fucking awesome. Yes, I want that, dude. Give me that. Give me that. Gibbs me that. I want it. That's exactly what I want. So whoever's living in Pennsylvania, find me an area that is semi-rural but has a nice city nearby. That's why I've been looking like around the Scranton area, around the Philly area. Find me a place where I can start my satanic temple in peace. And some of you guys can come on weekends and we can do rituals in the backyard. Fuck yes. That's what I want. Something with at least 5-6 acres that I can buy that's not going to cost me $200,000 or $300,000. Something that needs some fixing up. And I'm gold at that point. Yeah, Sam says the customer service at Amazon's good. They are. They are really good. Yeah, Cole, I am thinking of, now that's probably not for another year or something. I got to really put it together. I am kind of in between books right now. I'm writing a whole bunch of them, if that makes sense. I've got at least 3 files for intended books that was going to come out this year. One of them was going to come out this year, and I'm still planning on one coming out this year. That won't be a problem. It's just which one. So as I'm working on them, it depends on my inspiration. The one that's coming along the most strongly at the moment is my vampire book. That is the one that's coming along the best. And it's going to be all about what I call infernal vampirism. And it's basically my take on the whole vampire metaphysical question. How you can work magic in that current, which usually they're things that I've done quite a bit. But some of them are newer things that I've only experimented with recently, and they're pretty powerful. They're pretty strong. So I'm going to be including all that as I work through it. But honestly, with all the stuff going on in the real world right now, I have been prioritizing things in order of importance, and it's meant that I've had to ground a little bit lately. For the last 3 or 4 months, because of COVID, because of everything, because of running my business directly instead of having 2 jobs where I could kind of wing the side job. Now I've got to focus on this and make it grow, and make sure I can be comfortable and not lose money, so I can eventually get myself out of basically almost the equivalent of poverty, really. Working magic again has brought me back. It's put me back in control of my life, and that's what I'm trying to give to you guys. It's one of the things like EA and I talk about a lot. It's one of the things that he wants to give the world. It's one of the things that I respect him so much for, is that he wants to take like his rags to riches story, so to speak. And I'm not saying, I don't think he was ever poor according to what he said. But he's absolutely said that he wants to show the world as an example. This is what, mastering and ascending yourself does. You can achieve greatness. It doesn't mean you won't have flaws, but you will absolutely achieve greatness. And he's done a great job. Let me see. I'll read that in a minute, White Wing Soul. That's a funny comment. But yeah, so Shadownomicon 2 or some other expansions on that is coming for sure. At the very least, the very barest minimum, what I intend on doing is releasing micro grimoires for each of the spirits that are in there that I've identified. And there's probably more, but each of the 7 plus Legion are the ones I'm going to focus on. So you're going to have, 20, 30, 40 page for each one, if possible. And if not, then I'll lump a few together. But I want to add more to them because they're all very interesting beings. I want to put down some of my clients, some of my mentoree students have gotten very advanced with the Shadow Current already. One of them, who doesn't really get to watch my streams very much, but he and I are going to be starting a project by the end of the summer, early fall, that's going to be public, where you guys can participate in that. We're actually doing the initial work now. We're experimenting with the rituals we've been doing, and we're going to be putting some of them together and actually, carrying out those rituals very soon, over the next couple of months. We're going to be opening gates and seeing what we can do with the Shadow Current in our communities. And if it's worthwhile, if it seems to be working, if we feel a change, if we feel like it's useful, we're going to open this up and make it a public thing. No cost to anybody. It's just here's some free documentation. If you want to play along, here's how you can do it. So that will be something useful. So let me go back to my comments here. Cole says they saw a shadow person last week. It happens. I mean, you don't even have to be deeply into the current to notice them. They can and other beings can manifest as shadows. Let's be honest. But shadow people specifically look like two-dimensional objects. That's usually how they manifest. I've never really seen them any other way, unless it's totally internal. Ranzael, of course, being a fallen watcher, and so my interactions with him have included a lot of angelic imagery, which of course is really a throwback to ancient Sumerian Abkalu and all that kind of stuff, the Watchers. Cat Jones, ooh, the thought of more books excites me. You're an amazing reads, especially now that you've mentioned Infernal Vampirism. It's coming. It's definitely coming. That seems to be my most requested one of all the ones I've been working on, so that will be the next one, unless I completely get writer's block and just don't feel like it. And it's, just so you guys know, it's going to feature Lilith a lot. That's part of why I'm taking my time, because I really want to get Lilith involved. I want her permission. I want to get her, approval. You don't command Lilith. You kind of, she says and you agree or disagree, and that's that. Lilith is a very don't try to boss Lilith around. We'll just leave it. For those of you who've never worked with Lilith, this should go without saying, but don't don't do it. So White, it just scrolled on me. Let me get back. Where'd it go? White Winged Soul. Shadownomicon cover sigil is too much. I had to put a book upside down. I hear you, man. And, it's almost like me and Johan were talking in a private conversation one time, and we discussed that it's almost like the inversion of the Eye of Providence. Whereas the Eye of Providence is the all-seeing eye that is glowing from above, and you kind of are aware that you're being watched by this divinity. Legion's eye is the inversion of that. It is the eye that you don't see, the eye that you're not aware of. It's the unseen eye. It's the eye in the dark. It's you watching yourself from within, and it's the shadow side of yourself watching. I mean, Legion is really the conglomerate, the combined essence of all of these shadow beings put together, all of humanity's shadow, and possibly others as well. So, all right, so we got enough people here that I can say, if you guys have questions, because my eyesight stinks and I'm a good 4 feet away from my screen right now, if you guys have a question, please put them in all caps, or of course you can use the super chat feature, or you can highlight my name, or if you got whatever kind of highlights you can do. So it's not required to super chat. It just, that bumps you to the front of the line. If it's in all caps, I try not to miss it. Don't use all caps unless you want me to read it out loud or respond to it. Otherwise, a lot of times I'll actually read these after, like I'll rewatch the stream and I'll read some of the questions after, and they'll give me ideas for later videos. So just get that in mind. All right, let's see. I've got one person standing out here that I see saying, quick question. This is from Maximo Coringia. Quick question, DH. What's your take on studying the history of spirits and deities versus approaching them on a more experimental way? Well, what you're basically asking is like reading a person's school record versus talking to them. So if you're looking to connect with the spirit and you want to know that spirit, my advice has always been take the minimal approach first. Start with, let's say it's a goetic spirit, start with what's in the Ars Goetia, and don't look for too much more. You can look for a little more, but don't limit yourself to, don't read a book about them. Don't read the grimoire of such and so. And I'm sorry, EA, if that affects your bottom line at all. Get your first experiences on your own with minimal influence from the outside world. Do at least 1 or 2 rituals with that spirit. At least one. Call that spirit, get it in your ritual chamber, get it in an invocation, feel that spirit, and start getting messages from them and work with them a little bit. For me, that's usually 1 session's good enough, and I have enough to start with. Let them introduce themselves to you. Ask them to introduce themselves to you. Ask them to show you who they are. Then begin your actual research. So in other words, don't start by going into every history book and every grimoire you can find and using that, because what you're doing is you're limiting what they show you. You have to understand that these spirits are as internal as they are external. They are both. They are not entirely external. Nothing's entirely external, but that's a higher non-dualistic concept. But these spirits in particular are, Crowley had said they're part of your pituitary or pineal gland. I forget which one. Like they're the chakras in your pineal gland, I think it was. I don't know about all that, but I will say from the spiritual sense, they are absolutely connected to your higher self. And you are meant to, just like with the original use of chakra, you are meant to install their divinity, their spiritual essence, into your awareness, into yourself. You are not meant to just work with them as if, they're kingpins in the underworld and they give you stuff. They are meant to be beings that you integrate into yourself, not unlike the shadow people that I talked about in Shadownomicon. They are meant to be beings that you integrate with yourself and you learn about yourself through them. And then when you're all said and done, you won't need them anymore. But you'll call upon them anyway because they're friendly feelings, they're friendly spirits, they're comforting beings in your mind. So you can call upon them, of course, to do things for you. What you don't realize is in a lot of cases, you're doing for yourself, you're just doing it in their name. You're calling upon their essence, they're inspiring you to act a certain way, make the right choices, and do things, or inspiring others around you, of course, to behave the way you need them to, or sometimes manipulating small events. But my point is a lot of the time, their strongest and best work is through you. And it becomes a kind of magical self-help, let's be honest, okay? That doesn't mean you don't get spooky things. It doesn't mean that there's never any poltergeist activity or thaumaturgy that goes on or any of that. It just means if you're working with the goetic spirits, you're working on them in a theurgistic way. You are trying to empower you're trying to upgrade your consciousness so that you become more aware of your divinity. Now, enlightenment, of course, is an excellent avenue for that, and there's Buddhist ways and non-Buddhist ways. There's a lot of ways to achieve that enlightenment state, but that's only the first step. So you can become quite aware of what you are. You can have that moment of satori, that moment of zen. You can achieve that moment where you go, I am one with everything. And then crash back down and go, okay, now how do I live that life? And the irony, of course, is you live it anyway, whether you try to or not, but how do you live it consciously? And spiritual forces are great for that. They're a great way to assist with that. They're a great way to upgrade yourself. And that's kind of what they're for. They're there to make the journey more guided, but they're going to punish you too. So I hope that answered your question. My opinion is basically simple. If you're trying to really work with them, work with them. If you're trying to just learn them for scholarly questions, go ahead, just research them. Don't worry about working with them. Let's see. Tara says, yes, thank you, Thorne. Thank you, Thorne. I'm doing good. Yes, thank you, Thorne. She probably will approve. I know you're talking about Lilith right there. That's really cool. And Tara says she's my matron. I believe it. I believe it. White Wing Soul, thank you for the donation. I guess I love that sticker. What is that? Is that a lemon head dude? That is cute. Looks like a little lemon-headed dude. I like that. Reminds me of the guy from Adventure Time. Unacceptable! I love that guy. Steroid says he keeps Lilith's sigil up at all times, and it's a good reason. Absolutely good reason to do so. Yeah, Jennifer, I understand. I'm not a book nerd, but I am a research nerd. Like, I find I don't have time to crack open a hardcover, paperback, whatever. I don't have time to read a Kindle thing, even. If I dedicate myself to read somebody's book, I really have to want to. And I'm not a big reader anymore. I used to gobble books down, especially like Dune and you know, Michael Moorcock and stuff like that. I know it's a funny name, but if you don't know who he is, look him up. And I love that stuff, but I don't read a lot of occult books, and there's a reason for that. A lot of it is because I'm trying to master my own gnosis and my own power, not somebody else's. So I will skim other people's works. I don't read them with intent, if that makes sense. And I know that sounds unfair. Here I am writing these big, long books for people, and that's for the people like you who like to read and do it that way. I've reached a point in my life where I don't copy-paste somebody else's system. And if I do, it's really because I'm initiating into an idea, and then I let it go. You know, I used certain other people's workings early on when I started this path again in 2018, but I already had a lot of my own methods before that. And so what would happen is you know, even though I was a skeptic for 15 years or so, back when I was younger, I had all of this experience, and so I'd read somebody else's work and go, I can easily apply that in my own way and make it work. So I'm going to try that. And so that's what I would do. And that led me to understand that, you know, when I'm looking around in the magical book section, whether online or at the store, there aren't many books that really tell you how to do the fundamentals. They tell you how to, you know, how to perform the rituals in terms of how to repeat the words and, you know, what incenses to use, but they don't tell you how to charge it with energy. They don't tell you how to find your intention. They don't tell you how to meditate even a little bit. They don't even give you the basics like I did. I could give you much more advanced stuff than that. I gave you just the very tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of stuff you can do for meditation. So they don't give you any of this stuff. It's literally just, you know, I forget, what is it, Modern Magic or, you know, whatever, yeah, like 12 lessons of Modern Magic, something like that. It's all just regurgitations of other systems and putting them into, you know, a way to talk about them. I'm not trying to be critical of any authors again, but it's like I wanted a book that when I was starting out, I wouldn't have to figure out how to do the basics. I wouldn't have to figure out what does he mean by intonation? What does he mean by, you know, visualize the energy moving around? What does that mean exactly? What does it mean to feel the energy? How do you make a psi ball? How do you channel energy into an object? I wanted to make sure all of those things is in the book so people can work with them. So Tara highlighted my name and said, they live inside of us. So yeah, as D.H. Thorne's last video from a couple of nights ago, I am Satan, I am Lilith, and they are inside of us all. So we are all Satan and Lilith. They are us and we are them. Very good way to put it. Very good way to put it. Oops, it's scrolling too fast. Let me slow it down. Direct Controller 187. Do you do a lot of energy work? Yes and no. Not in any formal system that you've probably heard of. I don't practice Reiki. I've done a little Qigong when I was younger in my martial arts days. I learned some basics, which I've twisted into my own methods that I like, and I've put them in my books. They're not very complicated. I use very simple formats. I don't worry about a lot of the complicated, you know, Qigong movements or yogic stuff or any of that. Not that they're useless, but I tend to focus more on mudra and mantra and breathing and things like that. And I left a lot of the mudra and mantra stuff out of Become the Maelstrom because I don't think it's necessary to get started. Eventually, one of my next books will include more mudra and mantra type stuff. I may do a book on Kuji-Kiri, but that's kind of a touchy subject for some people for some reason. I've noticed within the martial arts community, especially if there's like, you know, ninja people involved, they can get really touchy about that. I don't know why, but there's certain gatekeepers in that community that will not allow anyone to talk about that subject unless they belong to their specific, you know, cons, we'll say. They don't allow you to even talk about it without giving you grief if you're not careful. So that is absolutely something I want to do, though, is at least my own interpretation of those ideas. And it wouldn't be something that's meant to be ever replacing the original stuff. Because the original stuff, if you really want to know how to do Kuji, you need to find a proper, you know, source. But it's not that hard. You know, I knew a Buddhist monk not too long ago. I talked to him about Kuji. He says, it's really not that complicated. People make a big thing out of it. You can take it to a very advanced level, and you can learn the many hundreds of mudra that are in that system. The kuji are just the cuts, but there's many other mudra that go along with that. And there's many other principles. The ones we in the West know the most about are the 9 cuts of the ninja, with the 10th cut juji, which is when you're supposed to put your final final piece of calligraphy in there. Basically, visualize the symbol of the intent that you have and make that final cut and then disperse that energy into reality. It's a very practical, it's basically, sometimes I laugh at Spare, Osmond Spare, because when I've looked into the things he talked about, I never read any of his books, but of course I've studied a little bit of chaos magic on the side. And it's really funny because it's almost like he was aware of all these different systems that do these things. You have bind runes, which is basically sigils. You have the Kujikiri, which is basically a 3D sigil in space in front of you. If you use the Jumon power grid, it's basically, like I said, a sigil you're activating. It's an activation method, and there's many chaos magicians who use that method, actually. It's very useful. So, yes, I do energy work, but I don't do Reiki. Not my thing. I work with chakras a lot, and I work with other energy body elements. I see those things as thought forms that we have control over. We can control, shape, use them as interfaces, because that's what they are. The thought form you create as your energy body is the interface for your true self and your material body. It's kind of like if you were to put a skin over your web browser or something to make it a little bit more easy for you to use. It's kind of like that. That's how I see it, with a little bit more to it than that. But that's a very gross simplification, but it is what I see. All right, let's see. Oh my goodness, lots of comments. Let me scroll up. Sam A asks, this is a good question. I've sort of, tiptoed around this question a few times in my own life. Do you think telekinesis is possible? How do I answer this that will really get you to understand where I'm coming from? The problem with telekinesis is the word. It's the assumptions that the word makes. Telekinesis implies a supernatural ability for you to move objects using solely the power of your mind and nothing else. If that is what telekinesis is, no. I don't think it quite works that way. Because at that point it becomes, really the answer is more along the lines of the Matrix, there is no spoon. There's no object to move. Objects are a mental construct in the first place. So yes, you can change those constructs at will if you are in the right state, but does that mean everybody else is going to see that change? No. Because they have control over their own side of the equation. And so for me to do telekinesis in a way that you would see, I'd have to convince you that it's happening on a spiritual level, on a metaphysical level. My consciousness would have to make you believe that it was working. That I think is one of the fundamental necessities for it to work. You can't just, with the power of your mind, lift a cup up in the air and make it fly around. I don't believe that it works that way. What I do believe is that people have this necessity, because it's part of their fantasy of what things are, for the spirit world, for the source to be somehow separated from the material, as if the material obeys the commands of the source, or as if the material is somehow separated in that you can make the material move without touching it. What you have to understand is that the spiritual is completely without body. The more in the spiritual direction you go, the more you go through the astral to the spiritual side, the less physical it is. You have to look up Plato's forms. You have to understand that idea. Forms are without substance completely. There's no substance in a form. And spirituality is form without substance. So how can I, as a disembodied being, make things move unless I become embodied in some way? And so what you have to understand is this desire for telekinesis is your higher self desiring to have a more integrated control over its material environment. But of course, the irony is that material environment is not outside of its control already. It's actually something that's happening as part of the source. The source emanates all of this stuff. And the stuff, the objects you see in your environment, is actually just a vibrational, I would even hesitate to call it energy, because that puts too much meaning on it. You have to go to that whole neti thing. You have to understand, not this, not that. It's maya, it's an illusion, it's more like a dream. So there's nothing really to move, but the material plane is still a thing. It's an unidentified current of, we'll just call it energy just so you can wrap your head around it. It's a vibrational energy. And when you look out into the material world through the keyhole of your biological consciousness, when you're looking out into this world, you see patterns. And it's like a Rorschach ink blot. And what you see, you decide what it means while you're looking at it. Not necessarily your conscious mind, your subconscious mind, your higher self observes this material realm, applies the spiritual forms onto the things that match the shapes and meanings and symbolism, and you're off and running with a world that you can interact with. The material world, as you understand it, is a desktop operating system. If you saw the material world for what it is, you would have to completely dehumanize yourself. You would have to remove your eyes, remove your ears, remove your tongue, remove all the things that you think tells you what things are. You'd have to see the universe for what it is, and if you did, you'd see it's almost entirely empty space. There's nothing to see because what you see is a response of force fields within molecules and atoms. Those atoms are entirely empty space. They're part of a field. Some would say a quantum field. Some people prefer the word ether. I kind of like ether better. I think that's a more neat explanation for things, but I'm not a direct scientist, so I can only speculate. But whatever is we're observing is not a thing. It is a pattern, like a Rorschach ink blot, and you decide what it means. And I've given this example many times of, you can imagine a sphere without being able to see it. You can hold the idea of a sphere in your mind without anything to see, anything to touch, anything to feel, anything to smell, anything to hear. You can just know what a sphere is without thinking about it. Spheres exist as a form independent of the substance that matches that identification. So when you look in your environment, and I do this demonstration every time, if I pick up one of these, my crystal balls, one of my many crystals that I have, this one's dragon's blood with some hematite in it. When I grab this guy and I'm gazing into it, I recognize I'm not looking at a sphere. I'm looking at energy that happens to fit the form of a sphere. It's like I take the form of a sphere and I overlay it in my reality and I find the thing that it matches and go, aha, that's a sphere. But until then, it's not a sphere, and it's not even dragon's blood. It's not even that. It's not even a dragon's blood jasper, because that is an idea. That is a form. Once again, the idea of dragon's blood jasper is a form. That substance, that material, that materia, to use more of the alchemical idea, that materia is a blank until I decide that's what it means. That doesn't mean it doesn't look and feel and taste and touch like a sphere until I decide it does. What it means is that I'm matching that with the ideas of those things. And so much of our reality is based on that. So if you're trying to do telekinesis, getting back to the question and the point, what are you moving then? Well, I can move the form of that sphere with my mind anytime I want to, so can you. We do it all the time when we imagine it lifting off the table and moving around. You've just done astral telekinesis, 100% done. If you want to do material telekinesis, what do you need to do then? Well, you need a material interface. Well, what do you think your body is? What do you think the wind is that blows leaves around? What do you think so many other mediums are? Your mind, your center of awareness that makes the decisions about what is and what is not, is more or less a product of the experience of Source trying to understand itself. Because the Source cannot understand itself directly. It has to create a medium. It has to create an intermediary. It has to create a reflection. Your eye can't see inside of itself. It has to look in a mirror to see itself. So what Source does is, with its emanations, it creates a thing to rebound its light off of, if you will, if you want to use that Gnostic perspective. It creates substances for its light to emanate off of. And it's an implosion, not an explosion. When we're talking about emanations, we really should be thinking the Source is condensing smaller and smaller, not blasting something off of itself. So as it's seeing this light reflected back, it's still not seeing the truth. It's seeing a reflection. It's like Plato's cave. So how do you move an object if you're a disembodied spirit? Well, you have to become embodied somehow. Well, that's what you've done. You're a disembodied being. You're not a meat suit with a ghost driver. that whole body is within the awareness and creation of the mind. Your body begins and ends where you decide it does. You can extend your body further than it does. And it really depends on your ability to bend the rational laws of your own understanding, and it's very difficult. I can only go so far with it. I've done the psi wheel experiments quite a bit, and once in my life I had it go so well that I scared myself when I was a skeptic again. For those of you who don't know, I did magic for a long time, then I became a skeptic, then I did magic again. During my skeptical phase, for about 10 or 15 years, I didn't believe in any of this stuff. But I'd still test it because why not? And I would sit with my psi wheels that I would make. And one day at work, it went so well, I scared myself. Because I thought, I'm either going crazy, or maybe all this was real after all. I mean, just imagine, you're a total skeptic who used to do magic but turned away. It's like being an addict, and then you take a hit of something, and you're like, uh-oh, and you go back to it. But I didn't, but I felt terrified. Is this real? And I came running home. I tried to show my wife. She wasn't having it. For whatever reason, she wasn't into it, and I couldn't do it again. And I've done experiments at home, and I can't get it to work to the same level. Yes, it does feel like sometimes I can control it, but it's very minimal. So the question is, did I blow a gasket? Did I use up all my energy? Well, there's a lot of dogmatic people who would say those things. They'd say, Thorne, you burnt out, you did it too much, or you don't believe, that's why it doesn't work. No, I believe now. It's just my understanding of what's happening is a little different. Now I don't expect for that thing to move just because I think it's going to move, or just because there's some kind of brain waves going that I can't see that's making it move. Now I understand that the reason it moved was because there was an air current in the air that made it move. However, I was that air current. So that is the true nature of telekinesis. The true nature of telekinesis and all of those high-level thaumaturgical activities that are Hollywood, as I call it, which very rarely work or happen. When they do, you have to recognize that it wasn't your brainwaves, it wasn't your soul doing it, it was you doing it. But the air became an extension of who and what you are. That made the candle flicker, that made the side wheel spin, that made the cup fall off the table. You were that. But because you're limited to this small little expression and understanding of who you are, you don't identify with the wind or the vibration in the ground or whatever it is, and so it felt like magic. Another way to put it would be kind of like, imagine that you don't even know you have an arm and you go to pick something up and you hold it. It would be magical to you. It would be really wild. You'd say, what did that? Well, you did that. You just don't know it. Now this applies to the spirit world as well. In order for them to manifest poltergeist activity, they need to somehow become embodied on some level. They either have to concentrate material energy or whatever it is. Some people have called it ectoplasm. Some people have just said like you'll notice that when certain spirits operate and do poltergeist activity, it gets cold. It gets physically noticeably cold. Thermometers will register a difference. You'll have EM meters. When you do ghost hunting, I think a lot of that's BS, but then sometimes it's not. That's the thing. Sometimes it's not. When it's not, that's really amazing, really interesting, really informative. Well, there's a lot of false positives in the ghost hunting community, though, I'll tell you that much. But to say nothing for the fraud. But there is something to that. These spiritual beings have to manifest and use the energy of the environment in a way that allows them to manifest their will. But the best way is through living things. This is why they're all so eager to be in you, essentially. Why they always like you to work with them. When you're doing an evocation, what are you doing? You're lending them your energy, your own influence. You're lending them the materials that you've set up for them to manifest through. You've created a portal for them to manifest through by giving them easy things to work with, including your own energy and your own will and your own body. Evocation means, of course, you're doing it outside of yourself, but there is no outside of yourself. That's kind of like where it gets a little BS filled. There is no outside of yourself. There is just the self. So it's really outside of your identified self that you're doing evocation. And that to me is kind of, when I say lower, I don't mean inferior, but I mean it's a lower vibrational intention. because you've forgotten that you are all of this. Well, what I like to do is invocation and possession. I prefer that. With some manifestation, just because it's cool. I like watching the smoke do tricks. I like when I get faces in things. I like when I have deep visual experiences, when I have the poltergeist activity. It's hard to beat that. It's pretty awesome when it happens. And it does. You practice this long enough, it won't take long to get a poltergeist. To get something stronger than that, lifetime, to get something really like you see a spirit that you really can't tell if it's in your mind or not, a little harder by a long stretch. But some people are gifted and they have that right away. But on average, if you haven't had it yet and you're just starting, probably not for a while, because you have to get to the point where you recognize that the internal and the external are one, and what you see in your head is also what's outside of you. If you see a spirit in your mind's eye in the corner of the room, that's probably where it is. You're giving it a vessel, as EA and I talked about on our last stream. You're giving it a vessel for it to inhabit, to act through. So to do telekinesis, just to come back to that answer, I'm getting really thorough, aren't I? To get to the point, again, if you want to do telekinesis, reach out and grab it with your hand, because that's your brain, that's your mind, that is your soul animating and possessing this meat puppet, if you will, riding this meat puppet, and hey, let's pick up that ball, let's pick up this staff, let's pick up this. And that's how it works. And one final proof of that is, let's say you could manipulate objects just with the power of your mind. Sooner or later, that would be mundane too. And you'd want to go, well, can I manipulate objects without using the power of my mind? So asking, is telekinesis real, is like asking the same question. It's like asking, can I move something without the power of my mind? It's just going one step lower. Can I move stuff with my mind? Yes, you can. Pick it up with your hand. I know that sounds like a cop-out to some people, but if you understand the bigger picture of source and energy and non-duality, it's not. You're actually right on the money when you do that. Anyway, let's move on. I covered this a lot. Boy, I'm way behind here, guys. I'm way behind. Disc controller, yes. Dice controller. Magic mirrors are awesome. I like magic mirrors a lot. And you can use any old mirror. It doesn't have to be black, although it can help for some people for it to be black. Adversarial self? No. My wife's read Michael Ford. I've maybe skimmed 5 minutes of it because someone said I sounded like him with some of my ideas. And I wanted to verify that he said those things. That's about it. Jennifer Vasa says, by the way, I love your Lucifer Theta mantra. Thank you. That's one of my best works. It's a little too short, I understand, but I'm not going to make it longer, I don't think. I like how long it is. All right, let me move along. How to get fully possessed? Yeah, well, let me come back. Let me just scroll ahead and I'll come back to that question. Okay, so there wasn't too many more questions. Let me go back. So how to get fully possessed? How to get fully possessed? How to get fully possessed? You already are. You already are. Your higher self is already possessing your body as an avatar. And when we say possession, that's a bad word. I use it, but it's a bad word because there's nothing in ownership of anything. When I use possession, I mean in possession of all faculties, is what I think of it as. So when I invoke a spirit and I reach a point of what I would call or classify as a possession level invocation, I am in possession of my higher self in such a way that my higher self has less obstruction in action. The avatar is more direct. My avatar is no longer distracted by my own egregoric ego getting in the way. You see, what you think you are is an egregoric ego. You think you're a person. You think you're Bob, Ralph, Jim, or Sally. That's a story. That's just a story. What you are is not that. You are the thing behind that. You're the awareness that occupies that knowledge. And so if you become possessed by another being, you could say your body is no longer the focus of your original higher self. It's some other being's awareness that is occupying that self. You have to see your body as like a record and your consciousness as the needle on a record player or something along those lines. And you can change needles and the song stays the same. You can change needles, the record stays there. So you think you are this thing. You think you are a person. But you can change that story anytime you want to. And higher disembodied spirits know this because that's how they manifest. You are a higher disembodied spirit, ultimately. But you have chosen for a time to incarnate as an embodied being. What the whole rules behind that is, I'm not sure of them all. I'm still investigating. But I do understand that embodiment is part of the illusion. It's part of Maya. It's part of that fake reality. And it's useful to us, so we use it that way. We work with it that way. We get lost in it to the point where we don't even know that we're so much more. Think of it kind of like zooming in a video game on just one, like if you play like RTS games where there's like a whole bunch of units. It's like you're the player who's decided to just zoom in on one of the little units and pretend you're him. And you pretend so hard and so long you forget you're a computer player. You forget you're a gamer. You forget you're playing a game. And you go, holy crap, I'm this one little soldier, I better not die. You make up a whole story to identify him, what he's about, and that's what you're doing. So what's possession then? Well, possession would be another part of your consciousness or another consciousness entirely sliding into the gamer's seat or sharing that seat. Because the way I do it, it's like a spectrum. You have evocation on one end and possession on the other. The more the two of your consciousness come together, the more it changes from one to the other. When you're perfectly aligned, half and half, it's like a low-level possession or a high-level invocation. You become so aware of the other spirit being part of you, and you both act fluidly as if you're one being. You don't question what it's saying. It doesn't question what you're saying. Is it flawless? No. It's actually limited to what you know. Even in full possession, it's limited to what you are capable of and what you know, but it can tweak things, I promise you. You're not going to get like Superman strength. You're not going to suddenly become, Doctor Strange. You're not going to suddenly become as smart as, Stephen Hawking or something. But you'll be able to remember things. You're going to act, and people can tell who've been doing this a long time. They can tell the difference between a proper possession and someone who's just pretending. There is a difference. There's a very noticeable difference, and it's not just energetic. There's a behavior pattern. There is a way in which they act. And yes, they will sometimes say things that are incorrect. You can be possessed and say something that does not match with reality at all. That doesn't mean it wasn't true, but it is possible for a spirit, because it's limited to your faculties, to say things and do things incorrectly. How many cases are there of people who've been possessed who can speak in a language they've never heard before, but it's never really perfect, right? Never really perfect. Maybe once or twice in history people have recorded it was pretty close. Most of the time it's never perfect. Why is that? Well, because you're limited to what you've experienced before somewhere in this embodied state. Because memory, although it does transcend the body, what transcends is not the embodied memories the same way that you think they do. I said this in my last video. You can forget things from when you were a child, but they can still influence who you are now without being able to remember them. Yet, how is that possible? The same way that a spirit, your higher self, influences who you are now, although you have no memory of your past life in specifics. It's no different than that. So to be possessed, in order to become possessed, this is a two-way operation. You cannot just say, I want to be possessed, and that's it. And chances are, until you've experienced it, you won't know what it feels like. Chances are you won't even be able to tell that it's happened. Sometimes even it's happened and you don't even know it because you're not aware of it when it happens. So you have evocation on one side, you move into invocation, channeling, all that good stuff. You hit possession. There's like a threshold where you're no longer in joint custody. Now the other being is taking more direct control over you and your faculties. And it can tweak them. You can get strong. It can activate your adrenaline. It can do all kinds of crazy stuff that you can't consciously do. Anything that is within the power of your body to do consciously, it can do. I've seen weird stuff. I've seen eyes go in different directions. I've seen some weird stuff. So to be possessed, you have to have trust with the being you're trying to be possessed with. And I say with instead of by. You notice I'm making that distinction? You don't want to be possessed by anything. You want to share the controls, or if you're going to step out, this is a possession with, not by. Because the ultimate idea is that you're still there somewhere, and you always are. Although occasionally I've seen and had experiences with possession where I blanked out and didn't remember anything, the vast majority of the time I was like a backseat driver. I saw myself acting without realizing what I was doing. I would speak words, and I knew I was speaking them, and I thought the things that led to them, or I knew what I was saying, but I didn't know where they came from. And as I've become better at magic and meditation, I'm always in a state like that. I'm going to say 80% of the time. Maybe 90 even. Depends on the day. Some days it's like all day. When I'm writing really well, I'm in that state the whole time. I'm not thinking. I'm literally just acting as an invoked divinity as best as I can, with whatever limitations my body creates for that. So when you're being possessed, you don't have the same feeling of control, but you will have probably all of the same faculties. You'll still be able to feel what's going on. I remember a couple of times when I was possessed, I did things that were pretty dangerous. I'd punch brick walls. And I felt every bit of that punch. I felt it. But it didn't faze me. It was like I was behind the controls, watching my hit points go down, and I couldn't do much about it. So I had a detachment. There's a sense of detachment. It's probably not that different from ego disillusionment that happens in meditation and psychedelics. Except instead of being completely disillusioned where you go, that's me and I'm not me, you go, somebody else is pretending to be me now all of a sudden. So there's no magic trick, if I can put it that way without sounding too goofy, to making possession happen like you command it to happen. Possession is a gift. Possession is a treat. Possession is a thing that is done it's a thing that is done in a very intimate way. You can't just say, Lucifer, speak through me. You can't just do a magic spell and Vine takes over your body. But if you have a relationship with the spirit and the need is correct, you can ask for it. And sometimes you'll get it. Sometimes you won't even have to ask. If you have that open door policy, like I usually have with my trusted spirits, it'll happen. And for those of you watching my videos long enough, you probably notice occasionally I go into like these states where it's like something else is talking. He's ranting or he's gotten really lucid or whatever. That's happened. And I've got video of me being fully possessed where you can tell I'm not me anymore. Probably will never share it because the guy that I have it for, it's a private consultation situation. And I don't like doing it on command because it's not something I do on command. So if you want to know how to be possessed on purpose, you can ask for it. It's not a skill, it's an agreement, if that makes sense. It's a thing that you build the relationship up to. It's like sex. You don't just say, fuck me now. I mean, maybe you could. You get enough money going. I mean, I guess. Haha. But no, seriously, it's not like that. It's like sex. It's like it's a mingling. You can't just make that happen. And people who say spirits can possess you against your will, no, it's impossible. What they do is they break your will. A malevolent spirit, when they want to possess you, they will spend sometimes many years breaking you down so that you don't feel like you have any kind of control. You'll be put into abusive situations. And a lot of the times the possessions that I've experienced that were malevolent in nature were actually a cry for help. And the spirit was in a way answering that cry for help using an unusual method, creating a breakdown, creating a crisis. among trusted friends or spiritual leaders that could help them with the bigger picture problem that they're suffering from. People who've been sexually abused or who are using drugs saying, I'm possessed, I got to beat up my girlfriend, I beat her up when I was drunk, when I was possessed. Well, no. This is their shadow talking. And a spirit, a demon, may have lended itself to this purpose. I've had situations where the possession would go from violence and insanity and all this good stuff to just talking it out. I suddenly learned that, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? What's going on? Well, this such and so is an evil. Yeah, why are they evil? And you just, like someone talking someone down off a ledge, you just work through what they're saying and you try to, I'm really good at that. I'll needle through your defenses and find the cause. And we'll find what it is that's your malfunction. And when that's found, it's like the demon unmasks itself and says, all right, you can help them now. I've had that happen twice. Is that every case? No. Because there's definitely malevolent spirits that do this to hurt you. It's something that I actually have made a mistake on in the last year or two of doing this work publicly, is I've made this, and I brought it up with Coletting last week, I've made this mistake of making it seem like these demons are always sweet, lovely, cutesy, little, beneficial, loving beings that just want to help you. They've been that way to me, and they've been that way to a lot of you, but that's not their default energy. That's not how all of them are. There's definitely spirits in this world, some of them are your ancestors, and you don't even know it, that would love to see you destroyed. I know, saying it's ancestors is almost sacrilegious, but it's true. You don't always like all your ancestors, right? Why would all of them like you? So there's spirits in your world that, and they're egregores, let's be honest. They're stories that follow you around and will try to destroy and insert them. And when you become open to magic, if you're not careful initially, you can get that bad experience. It does happen that way. You will notice 90% of the worst experiences are in the beginning in magic. After a while, you become confident, you become comfortable, you gain control of that door, whether you do protective magic or not. You gain a sense of control, and possession is no longer without any kind of permission. It is absolutely with permission. And so evicting that spirit when it's possessing someone against their will, which I said before isn't really possible, to do an exorcism, you're actually making them feel empowered, like there's hope, like there is a chance that the spirit can be evicted. You're saying spiritual verses over them, filling them with their faith in God. God's going to save me. Get out of me, spirit. God's going to save me. That's sometimes all it takes. I know that sounds almost too easy, right? It's not Hollywood enough for some people. Some people really want it to be. There's a spooky monster that takes over your biology for you and you have no choice. Nope. Some people have even approached possession like, they really want to experience it because they feel like it's going to be like a drug or something. It's going to be like taking psychedelics. It's going to be so cool to leave their body. Never seen it work that way. Not quite. People will blank out. It's almost like having multiple personalities. They'll forget themselves, and they will be someone else for a little while. But that person doesn't go anywhere. It's not like they, that was so cool. No, when you have that full, complete blackness, you don't know what the fuck happened. You get missing time, or this feeling like you went to sleep, or it's like a drunken blur. Anybody who's ever got blackout drunk, you've done stuff you can't remember, and all you see are flashes of it from time to time. Kind of like that. All right, let's move on. I see you guys got kind of quiet. Oh boy. Yep, I missed some stuff. I ranted. I ranted. Let me catch up to where I was. Just to remind you guys, if you guys want a question answered, please put it in caps, or of course super chats, or highlight my name, whatever you guys do, so long as this way I can pick it out, because you guys are often talking between each other. I don't want to read it all. Seeking Serpent asks, have you ever heard of Poke Runyon? Yes, I have. I don't really know anything about him at all. I've heard of the name in passing many times, and I'm terrible with names. I really have to intentionally keep a name in my head for me to hold it for very long. And never read his books, never watched him, never talked to anybody who really based anything on him. So he might be awesome. That's where I'll have to leave it. As you guys know, I'm self-taught with everything. I'm an autodidact. I do not like to be taught. It just doesn't float with me. And if I do submit to training, it's to get my feet in the right direction, and then it's like wind me up and let me go. So like I've got some friends in Virginia, the Virginia area. We're talking about all the crises going on, and Azazel telling me to prepare. And I've never had a lot of formal training with firearms beyond family and doing my own drills that I watch things on video on YouTube, or I'll do airsoft and paintball, and I'll apply it. And I'm actually pretty good when I'm in shape. I'm out of practice though. And so I've told them that like when I lose weight, I'm going to go down, because they invited me, come on down. We'll give you a whole, we'll give a whole bunch of training with it, because they're former military and stuff. I'm like, oh, fuck yeah. Who wouldn't jump on that, especially if they're qualified, which they are. They're going to show me the stuff so I didn't learn, because I always learn gangland stuff, if that makes sense. I know how to get the drop on people, but I'm not like, I'm not like thinking I would win a firefight with a trained soldier. I don't think so. So they're gonna give me the stuff just for fun, just so I can use it, but also to prepare in case, all hell breaks loose in the next year or 3. So yeah, in that case, I'm going to jump on that. I am capable of being taught. It's just, especially intellectual things, I like to teach myself. I learned more after high school than I ever learned before. I could barely write, and I don't tell people this much because I'm an author. And some of you may, because you're like really good at spelling and grammar, like my books could use an editor. But I did all of it myself, editing included. And for me to be able to do that, if you saw my writing skills when I was in my early 20s, I could barely touch type. Now I type 140, 150 words a minute. And you've only seen my books with one edit behind them. I've never done multiple edits. I only do one. So I got a lot better by teaching myself. My vocabulary is enormous because I like being well spoken. But I never went to college. Never went for secondary, third school, whatever. Never did any of that stuff. Right out of high school, I got a job, or close after that. Was going to go military, changed my mind last minute. So no, I don't do well with people who are in authority, who think they know everything, breathing down my neck like that. There are certain things like martial arts I make exceptions for, because if I want a skill that I don't have, that's the only way to get some of those skills properly. So yeah, I'll go and I'll study that, but I'm not educated. Everything you hear me telling you is either based upon my own inner reflections, skimming that I've done and then I connected the dots myself, or the only mystic I would say I've ever studied as a study would be Alan Watts. That's the only one that I would say. And my study of Alan Watts really just pieced together the things that I already kind of knew and put them in a order of speaking that suddenly made intellectual sense, not just feeling sense. When I would listen to Alan Watts, at first it was just kind of neat. And then I would go, I've always thought these things, but the way he's saying it, he's lining them up. And when I had my moment of Zen, we'll say, it was while listening to Alan Watts. And there was something he said, and it triggered that disillusionment experience for a moment. And when I came back down, I was laughing and crying hysterically. And that's actually how he's described it in later videos that I hadn't watched yet at that point. Enlightenment is often the result is laughter. It's it's like a joke. Enlightenment is like getting a joke, finally. After many years of hearing the joke over and over, like you hear a joke as a little kid that's a dirty joke and you don't get it. And then when you get older, you go, oh, now I get it. It's a little bit like that. In fact, it's exactly like that. White Wing Soul says, anything about history you can divulge? I assume you're referring to that one video I did about the story time, where I was talking about the Nephilim and all that stuff. Not at the moment. Nothing new. Let's be honest. My spirit. I was gonna get all poetic, and my spirit's like, no, just say no. No, you don't. You don't have anything new to talk about. No, I don't, because I'm not interested in that right now any more than I have to be. I'm really more interested in where we're going right now. And I'm always, I've really tiptoed around my political views because people are so sensitive about things right now. I don't want my channel to turn into a political, divisive nonsense, but because I do value human beings in my own Luciferian way. Obviously, I value myself much more. But to be honest, I do value humanity because it's my support system. It's my world. I don't want the world to burn. I don't want us all to be enslaved in communist gulags or fascist dictatorships. I want us to be as free as possible with, at the same time, a sense of law and order that we can prosper within. Very minimal. I am not ashamed to tell you I'm libertarian in principle, not party. But I'm not going to get all heavily political. But I am very, very, very concerned about what I'm seeing. I'm seeing, maybe you guys are seeing it, maybe you're not. If you're not, you need to ground a little more, I think. You might have your heads too far in the clouds. Or you might want to maybe look into what your biases are. But if you don't see the social engineering propaganda going on right now, for what it's worth, if you don't see a literal takeover being attempted, if you don't see the globalist pattern of, colorful uprisings, Bolshevik-style uprisings, and then the response to that is always going to be fascistic, isn't it? If you don't see what's going on right now, and it doesn't make you want to prepare for the worst and hope for the best, you're hopeless. And not in the good way that gives you power. Being without hope can make you very powerful. When you have nothing to lose, when you feel like you're damned, then you can do anything. But if you don't know it, if you think everything is okay and you're just willfully ignorant, you're going to be the ink with which they use to write the pages of history. You're going to be squished, turned into ink. You're going to be the oil that fuels their machines. And the elite are very powerful mages in many cases. Most of the people that we're talking about, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Soroses, the Trumps, they own very powerful spiritual people that know the things that I'm talking about. Some of them would probably kick my ass. There, I'm being humble for a minute. So be aware that you're not just seeing a little bit of controversy. You're not seeing just a little corruption. The media is bought and paid for by international corporations that will do the bidding of their masters, and none of them are okay. Some of them are worse than others because they're just more overt right now, but they're all bad. If you get your information or ideas off of any mainstream news channel, you're lost. I don't care if they agree with what you think or not, because they insert propaganda in there that undermines the truth and hides it. So let's say you're right wing, you like Fox, they're lying to you. Let's say you're left wing, you like CNN, they're fucking lying right now. 3 weeks ago, going out and demonstrating for ending the lockdowns was you're a terrorist, and a week and a half later, you're a racist bigot if you're not. It's doublethink, it's divisionary, and as much as I stand for certain things that are going on right now and support, I don't support at the same time. I want to be free. I want everybody to be free. I want humanity to be free. I have that Luciferian quality. I'm sorry if I'm getting too political for some of you. I'm not watching my views. Hopefully it didn't all tank all of a sudden. I got like 5 people watching. But this is a spiritual subject, I promise you. This is a very spiritual subject because this is the nature of power, guys. This is the nature of power, what I'm talking about. You see, you're an independent. Because if you're not in the club, you're not in the club, as Carlin would say. You're not part of the club, so you better make your own fucking club. You better make your own army of one. You better make your own posse, your own rule of law in your own life. And if you can't see what they're doing to you, like the movie They Live with the glasses, if you can't put the glasses on and see all the bullshit, or at least see that there is a lot of bullshit, you don't have to catch it all, but if you can't see it, you're fucking doomed. And that is an exquisitely spiritual thing. You better start working with Balaam and especially Lucifer. Lucifer will set your ass straight on what freedom means. Lucifer will set you on a path where you go, oh, so my best intentions are actually oppression half the time, and I didn't even realize it. And you're sitting there saying, oh, well, we need to have this and that, and these kinds of protections in our government and society so that we don't go poor and all this. The sword that you make today and give to the king to protect you from the raiders at the gates is the same sword that he's going to hold at your throat next year when the raiders are gone and he has to extract taxes to pay for the army that keeps the raiders at bay. And those raiders, he's paying them. Don't give these fools power. Keep as much of it for yourselves as you can possibly keep. Only give what you have to give so that you can have a society that you can live in that is remotely reasonably safe. And you shouldn't be obsessed with that word safety. If you're a black magician, the word safety should offend you. If you're a black magician and you're terrified of the world and you're, I need to wear masks and I have to be all this, I'll wear a mask out of convenience or just to be nice to the stores that I go into. I'm not afraid of this disease. I mean, especially now, it's pretty much a nothing burger at this point. I'm not saying we should underplay it because then I'll get my channel revoked because YouTube is exquisitely pushing that narrative. But no, I'm not afraid of this crap. I'm not the type of person who runs to safety. The word safe pisses me off. I can't stand when people said, to keep us all safe, we need to ban this. Wake up, guys. Those of you who don't get it, you will, one way or the other. All right, I'm getting off that subject, guys. I'm really getting off that subject. Any Dantalian stories? Oh boy. All right, Dantalian stories. I haven't worked with Dantalian much this year, so I don't really have any fresh stories about Dantalian, no. A lot of my stories about Dantalian would have to be personal and private because of clients that I've worked with him. I will say that in my workings with him, he's always struck me as the kinder, gentler demon. His idea of romance and love magic is familial, family type of love. You want to get married, you want to have a happy family, you want to have balance and harmony in your family, you've got family issues you want to resolve, you've got, whatever. He's also the type of spirit that won't just give you what you want, but what you need. If someone comes to me and they say, I need Dantalian to help me fix things with my ex, I'm going to warn him and say, Dantalian may or may not want that. And in some cases I've told them, no, he's not going to bring your ex back, not going to happen, but he's happy to work with you to try to fix your problem. And they go, what does that mean? I'm like, you'll find out. And what ends up happening, they're healed over time. They become more stable on their own. They're comfortable as being single, and then that empowers them to find the right person they were waiting for all this time, instead of that stupid ex that cheated on them. So Dantalian's awesome. Absolutely awesome. But I don't have a lot of use for him all the time, One thing I will tell you is that he loves books. I think I said that in my review. And he's also been seen to be carrying a big book. And there's been a lot of speculation about what that book is. I have a friend who works a lot with Dantalian now. That was the last thing when I was mentoring her. That's what she wanted to know about was Dantalian. And she got in touch with Dantalian. They did very well right off the bat. Very, very good connection right off the bat. Very happy with that spirit. In fact, she had a lot of really cool new gnosis and experiences because of it. And I haven't had time to read a lot of it because I have so many people I work with, so I got to prioritize people who are paying me sometimes. But she's had some really, really interesting experiences. But Dantalian, Makes an excellent patron. You will be a very mellow kind of person, especially if you're into psychiatry or anything to do with social stuff. You're like, say you're a social worker. Let's say you help people get welfare benefits, or you're helping people like abused women and all that kind of stuff. Dantalian is going to be on your short list of spirits you should work with. Easily on the short list. And he wants me to tell you how I've been seeing him. Lately, when I've been seeing him, I don't see him as he's depicted in the Geisha. I see him as a cloud with a lot of heads kind of coming in and out of view in the cloud, like a little puffy, almost cartoon cloud, but not a cartoon, like a nimbus, like a little nimbus cloud. And in there are faces that will, when they talk, they kind of come to the front and then fade away. So a girl's voice speaks, a woman's face will pop forward. And that's what I see. And the irony was, when I looked it up in, I think it's the Crowley Mathers edition, one of them, they have the illustration, not far off. I was like, wow, holy shit. And I did this before I read that book. Like I told you, I like to do these things first. Because then I get that holy shit moment, someone else saw it already. This is why I keep reminding people, don't over-research your spirits. Do your spiritual research after you've had some contact. And if you can't make contact with the information you have, up it a little bit. Think of it kind of like getting a tuning fork or something. You know, you have to get it in tune, and then once it starts resonating, stop and let them do the rest. So minimal increments to get more and more until you really got an idea of the basic, what you should look for, and then let them control the show. Be able to make them a good vessel for them to manifest through. Once you've got enough of that, just let them do it. I can usually do it on my first try because I usually keep it minimal and up to a certain point, and I'll feel like I'm making a connection, and I just go. I don't do any more research. I don't sit there and watch YouTube video after YouTube video, book after book, just a little bit. And so when I went back and read that little section and I saw the picture, my jaw hit the floor. You know, it was awesome. It was an awesome feeling. And that's the point. Because nothing is going to make you more powerful than belief that you've experienced something like that. And when you've experienced it a few times, you still get those doubts occasionally. I mean, Cody said it in the live stream the other day I watched. He put it out very well. After 20 plus years, you'll still have doubts about what you're doing. But those doubts are so much more easily scattered on the rocks when you go, yeah, but I remember that time that I saw this thing and that thing, and there's no way I can explain it. Very powerful experiences. Let's move on a little bit. Okay, lol 879. I'm really sorry about your butthole. Maybe you could find a way to clear that up. And looks like somebody cleared them out anyway. I don't see them anymore. Where'd Tara go? Somebody just said, what the fuck, damn, Tara's gone. Did she leave? What happened to Tara? Let me see. Did she say she was leaving? That's all right. We'll talk to her again soon. Hopefully she's okay. Sometimes she can't stay up late or whatever, I think, so. Yeah, I'll have to skip ahead. Name your energy techniques and benefits, DH. No. I have no names for them right now. I use a lot of chakra work, like I said. I use visualization. If you've got my book coming, I give you basics for creating psi balls and how to push and pull energy into and through objects using breath. So in most of the old systems of energy work, as we call it now, especially if we're going to where it mostly originates, you're talking about India and places like that. I think the Greeks might have touched on it because there was a lot of, people don't realize there was a lot of cross-pollination between the Greeks and the Indian culture back in the olden days. But that's why you'll see a lot of what they say is identical, just different cultural language, if it makes sense. They'll both talk about a monistic view of the universe, and they'll do like Neoplatonism and Advaita Vedanta are like this, just different. Like they agree about everything. They agree about the initial condition, and then they express it a little differently. One being more, about gods and goddesses being incarnations of, the first god, which is source. Okay, it's a little bit more pantheistic in some Hindu translations of it, and then Neoplatonism is not that much different. It's just instead of Brahman or something like that, they talk about God and then all the emanations of God and all that. So all of that emanating from source. So there's source, then there's the first God, the first emanation, basically. Blah 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 blah. You get into a little bit of a dogma. still useful and still very interesting dogma nonetheless. But the principles are basically the same. So when it comes to energy work, you can go back to those cultures and go back to those things and use them to help educate yourself. See, part of the problem is in our modern world, we've kind of, how do I put this? Think of it like a cheeseburger. This is going to be a weird analogy, but just bear with me. Think of it like a cheeseburger. Some of you guys know what a home burger tastes like. It's just a wad of meat. You slap it between some bread, some ketchup, some cheese, and it's fucking good as hell. Greasy as shit, great. Well, that's like the original energy work systems that were developed in the olden times. Well, then someone said, well, no, you got to do it exactly this way. And they create a tradition out of making that home burger. So now it's not you just slap it together and have a good time. Now you got to make sure you have this much meat, this much ketchup, this much seasonings, and they traditionalize it. Okay, then you get into the middle period stuff for that energy work. The chakra systems become kind of laid out, their foundations, the original traditional ways. And someone corrected me on this and they were very right to do so. There is no traditional way because the original chakra stuff was spread out among different practitioners kind of operating in their own identities for a long time, and then what we see today is kind of like the conglomeration of all of that, the coagulation of all that. So then they added to it more and more until now you're basically talking about processed fast food magic. You're talking about they went from the original principle of breathing, basically like the very basics of Qigong, and visualizing and understanding that you have interfaces between your energy body, your material body, and your higher self. That these chakra are those interfaces in which the life's energy breathes in and out through those chakras. They're like pumps that cycle that energy through, but they're more like pinwheels. They themselves don't do it. They're a response to the energy that's moving through your system, through your awareness. And you can find them in your body if you look for them. They're not hard to find. Especially if you use singing bowls. I find singing bowls are really good to help you find exactly where they are. Because if you listen to them, you can find where in your body that sound is resonating the most. And ironically enough, with a singing bowl, the upper sounds are easier to find. Once you get down past your solar plexus, it's a little harder to feel where the solar plexus singing bell is ringing in your body. When you find that spot, you will find that you can vividly feel like you're breathing in and out through that spot. You know you're not physically, but you can feel a kind of breath, a kind of in and out feeling when you breathe through it. The easiest one is actually the third eye because your sinus cavity is right about where it is. So you can kind of just kind of breathe in, goofily, and you can kind of, it's around that area, but a little bit further back and in. Oh, there it is. And you can go, and now you can really feel that chakra breathing. Well, that's the basics and fundamentals of energy work. Then you recognize your whole body is filled with conduits and tubes if we're going to be mechanical about it. They're not actually tubes and conduits though. That's the thought form. That's the idea of what they are. You can completely disregard all of the 114 chakras and focus on 1 or 3 or 7 or 12 or whatever your system prefers. But there's supposed to be like 114 major chakras, to say nothing of your hands have their own chakras. And all. This is like what I'm talking about. They become over-processed cheeseburgers. They become overly overdone. And they get so wound up in their own mechanicalistic thinking. And you can still achieve greatness with them. But you can get so distracted by all of that you forget all you have to do is breathe in and out through that general center of awareness, and your subconscious, your energy body will do the rest for you. Kind of like your computer. Do you have to be able to physically go in with tweezers and manipulate every single component to make it do something? No, you just enter a command on the computer and it will activate. It's no different. It's so similar, it's scary. So energy work for me, very simple process. It's very important you first have to be able to meditate and feel your own energy, your own awareness. Then you have to be able to manipulate that energy in your body a little bit. Qigong, the basics are very easy. Just some simple breathing exercises, using some body movements. You can start to feel buildups of energy. You make a chi ball, which is not as hard as it sounds. Most people get it on the first or second try. They go, wait a minute, I do feel kind of a pressure. What the fuck is that? I spent months trying to figure out what that was when I was a skeptic and I was looking it up. What the hell is that I'm feeling? Still don't know. Like, scientifically, I have no idea. The closest I would come is that it's something to do with, like, when you're stable and still long enough, your nerves pick up the movement in your body. But that doesn't make sense because I don't always have to move to feel it. So you'll feel a pressure or a suction, depending upon what your intention is. You can create a negative side ball where it's literally kind of trying to pull your hands together. And then you can fill that side ball, as I call it. Some people call it a chi ball. Some might call it a prana ball. So whatever you want to call it. A dragon ball, like if they like Dragon Ball. Fill it with your intention. Visualize what you want, and either visualize it completely entering there, like a movie just being poured into it, or picture it as turning into a sigil, or turning into a color of light. And don't just see it going in, feel it going in. And don't just feel it like with your body, feel it with your emotions. Every part of you has to feel this. It takes practice. Once you can do it very easily. If you watch my videos, you'll see me doing it all the time, where I'm doing ritual work. You'll see I'll hold a sigil, and I'm not just staring at it. No, I pump energy into it. And you'll hear me, and I'm really driving as much of that as I can. And I pantomime a little bit. I don't have to move my hands. I could sit here and just visualize it all happening, but magic, all reality is a holistic operation. You need to involve the mind, body, and the spirit. And the body doesn't just mean your body. It means the body of reality. But just for these purposes, we'll just stick to our body for now. This direct little tiny one. This is why yoga is so important. You're aligning your awareness, your consciousness, with the mind, body, and spirit of the true self. They're in alignment at that moment. When they're in alignment, magic happens. Whether you want it to or not, magic is just gonna pop out. I've had so many people, when they reach a certain level, ritual stops being important. You do ritual once in a while for like a cleanse, like a colon cleaner. You do that once in a while because you're getting bound up in your energy. And you need to do a ritual to feel good. Because rituals should be fun. Let's be honest. So if you want more, until I start offering books on that subject or lessons on that subject, that'll have to do for now. But Become the Maelstrom does contain some of that. Absolutely. D Phoenix asks, what is your astral projection technique? Man, you guys are just asking me the big questions tonight. How much time do I got? How much time am I talking? All right, so I'm going to actually have to end this pretty soon. Let me... Let me see. I'm going to have to cherry pick a question here. I can give you a quick answer to 72. 72, 72, and 36. How much is that? When you find that answer, you're getting close. 72 light, 72 dark, 36 of what? Put them all together. 72, 72, 36. Don't worry, Steroid. If you're still here, I appreciate you, brother. We'll talk again soon. Yeah, White Wing said 72 angels, and someone said 72 goetic. Why is it 77? Oh, someone's doing it. Somebody's doing it. Johan. Okay, Johan's getting it. Yep, 72 equals 2 times 36. Yeah, there's a lot of golden ratios going on in these numbers if you know where to look. If you understand those golden ratios, you understand certain kinds of triangles. If you understand certain kinds of triangles, you understand the pentagram. Then you understand the trinity of self, the trinity of power. It's hidden in there, guys. You guys have to understand. They hid this stuff in there, whether they meant to hide it or not. This stuff, the higher metaphysical questions, which is what I'm into, more than the stuff that, people go, Thorne, do another Demon in Review. Well, that's kind of like Grandpa telling a story for me. The part that I really want to know is why. What is all this? That's what I want. The spirits are cool. They're like playing a video game. They're fun, but I want the meat and potatoes of what the fuck this is. That's what I want. And there's some guys who know a lot more than I do on that, and I love watching them. There's a guy, his channel, he's a little bit of a nut job, but I love him. Theoria Apophasis. If you can look him up, I think his real name's Ken Wheeler. Look him up. Some of his things are harebrained as fuck, and other things are brilliant. And he's a dick. That's what I like about him. He like completely is so... He acts like such a smug prick. But I think he does that because if you watch his older videos, he wasn't like that. I think he does that because he's trying to impress upon people as a challenge. You know, like, you think I'm such a dick, prove me wrong. And when they can't, he like loves it. It's great. So Scott asks, what do you think of EA Coetting's removal of the chakras? It's not EA Coetting's. That's an idea that comes from other people. Removal of chakras is basically just removing a thought form, and it's changing the thought form to whatever you want it to be. This idea that there's aliens sucking on your chakras is kind of, I think, goofy, but if some people believe it, that's them. I'm not going to judge them. I don't believe it like that at all, but I do know as a psychic vampire, I target your chakras if I can. And I visualize your chakras, I visualize feeding tendrils going into them, and just inhaling your life force right out of them. Does my book have Qigong? No, not as such, and it never will, because I am not officially a Qigong practitioner. However, I do state Qigong influence, and I explain where that comes from and why. Can you throw a chi ball like a hand grenade? Yes, you can. But you don't really have to. You know, honestly, you just create it and then let it go. Let it disperse, and it will carry out its intentions. Let me scroll up a little bit. I got kind of zoomed ahead here. Did anybody do the numbers I said? 72, 72 plus 36. Did anybody get that yet? Let me scroll up. All right. Rachel Frederick asks, is it possible to work with entities and not know? And of course it is. Yes. In fact, one of my favorites, Amdusius. If you watch my video, Demon in Review for Amdusius, apparently that spirit was in my life since I was a little kid. And I joke around about being a brony because of it, because I loved unicorns growing up, and I still think they're pretty cool now. And I made a little bit of a joke because I'm obviously, like, you know, heavy metal biker goth guy. It's kind of funny to picture me liking unicorns, but it's true. Let's go. What experiences have I had with Belphegor? Officially none. However, I'm definitely aware that many of my times seated, and I'm going to be frank with you. Belphegor to me is the demonic spirit of what thoughts come to you when you're sitting on the bowl. I mean, let's say he's the inspiration of some of the deeper thoughts you have. That's the irony, is while you're sitting there taking a dump or taking a shower or doing that kind of stuff, Belphegor shows up and you get these wild ideas. That's my interpretation, but I've never reached out intentionally and talked to him, so I could be wrong. But that's how I've been treating him, as a side hustle, so to speak, and that's what I get. I missed the question I was going to answer. It was kind of a long question, or a long answer. Everybody's talking about flying ointment. Nice dice. When making flying ointment, must the child be unbaptized? I love that movie. That's a great fucking movie. Flying ointment is generally going to be like a psychedelic thing, or something that gives that, like, you know, probably mugwort, maybe blue lotus, some stuff like that, maybe some psychedelics in it, and you're going to experience out-of-body style lucid dreaming. Does my wife read my writing? If she's hearing me right now, because sometimes she listens, I've been kind of joking with her because she's probably the only person that hasn't. No, I'm kidding. She doesn't read it really. She kind of does her own thing. She's always meaning to, but she never really got into it because she has her own interests. She's always like, I'm gonna, and she does skim it. You know, she does look over it. But what's my astral projection technique? Okay. Let me go back a little bit, because I still want to kind of talk about that briefly, but that's a big subject because I have to explain problems with the question. So astral projection, my interpretation of it, and it's open for change if I ever have a different experience. I will, of course, admit it because I'm an honest person. I don't like to make shit up and act like I know it. I like to experience it and then decide. In my experience thus far, astral travel is internal, not external. And when I say that, that's with the understanding that the internal and the external are the same. My point, though, is that what you're going to experience in the astral is going to be your own toolbox, your own set of ideas overlaid on top of things that you've never experienced to help you understand them. So, for example, if you've never been to France, you can astral travel to France and you'll see the Eiffel Tower because everyone's seen the Eiffel Tower. Everyone knows what it looks like. You'll see the surrounding area maybe a little bit. And you'll float down a side street and you'll see details that seem real to you. Or they may be really weird and out of alignment and out of whack. But something in what you're seeing you have to recognize is symbolic. It's not a one-for-one thing. And I've challenged many people in my lifetime who've claimed to be expert at astral travel in the way that I'm describing it's not. To say, oh no, I leave my body and I go places and I see them exactly as they are. Or close to it. And I say, okay, I'm going to put an object in my cupboard. I'll even tell you which one. You tell me what that object is. I'll make sure it's obvious. I'll put a note in it. Tell me what that object is. Oh, well, I couldn't all of a sudden. Okay, fine. You can't see inside cupboards even though you can walk through doors, whatever. Well, let me put it on the counter then. Never works. They never get it right. Sometimes I've tricked them by not putting something there. So no, astral travel does not work as some of the people on YouTube try to make it sound. I have never, in all of my experiences trying to play with that subject, gotten it to work that way, and no one who claimed adamantly, like they believed, they weren't bullshitting me, they believed they could do it. They had the full Monty. They experienced leaving their body as far as they knew. They felt it, but they never got what they claimed. However, this is the caveat to it. They would sometimes say things like, I saw you in a study with a lot of books around you reading at around whatever time. And I'll say, well, I don't have a study in my house. Oh, well, maybe you were at the library. No, but I was researching things on YouTube at that moment. Aha! So that's how you have to understand astral travel. You're going to be visualizing and traveling to these places in your mind, in your astral sense, using symbolism that's probably going to represent things that actually do matter, but it's not going to be one for one, and it's not going to be like you are a satellite and you can see what's on the ground. You know, that's remote viewing, which is a different ball of wax entirely, and I don't really necessarily believe in that either. So let's narrow it down. Astral travel is not remote viewing, is basically what I'm saying. They're not the same thing. So what is astral travel? Well, let's remove the word travel, because that implies something that is also inaccurate. You're not going anywhere. Just like when you die, you don't go anywhere. There is no heaven or hell, but there is an infernal realm and a heavenly realm that you can visit as an awareness. Your consciousness can travel in that sense, but you're not moving. It's like in Dune, moving without moving, folding space. You don't actually move. You change paradigm, you change context, you change dreams. When you are awake in your normal state, sitting in this chair talking to you guys, for example, you are fully embodied and your consciousness is fully invested in the biological illusion. Because it's not dependent upon that biology at all. But it's fully invested in it. It's fully interfaced with it. And so its dream, kind of like wearing a VR helmet, puts you into an experience that is virtual. But it might as well be real for you because it's the only thing you know. Well, when you go to sleep, what's the difference? And I've had, this is another set of videos I could do. And some of my guys that sometimes watch, Johan's still here, he knows this conversation. We've had this one in depth recently. Maybe he can spell it out a little bit in the comments if he wants. When you're dreaming, you're on the other side of the veil, but the difference between one side of the veil and the other is only context. They're otherwise exactly the same. The veil itself is the context we use to separate them. I say I'm sleeping, so therefore it's a different experience than when I'm waking. But it's not. It's exactly the same. One side of the veil seems to feel like it has rules. But those rules are only rules while you're there. Because if, for example, in your everyday life, if I pick up this staff and let it go, it falls. Guaranteed. That's a rule here. Well, when I go into a dream world, the rules are different, but there are still rules. And they're more fluid, apparently, but I'll tell you something amazing about dreams. Unless you're having a lucid one, When you wake up in the morning, that's when it seems weird, not while you're dreaming. In your dream, if I pick this up and say it's going to fly into the sky and fly away, and it does, it might be amusing. I might recognize that it's out of my usual expectation, but it's not like I broke the laws of reality. It's entirely possible at that moment, and I believe so. My point is that your dream side and your waking side are the same. And your dream side is what you call astral. When you're having an astral vision, an astral dream, you're having a lucid vision. A lucid dream is an astral trip, is the equivalent. So when you do the techniques to do astral travel in your sleep, you go to bed, you lay down, you try to visualize coming out of your body with pulling on a rope or whatever your technique is, or maybe you use whatever those new chemicals they got going on are, that are safe to use supposedly. And I actually meant to buy some. I forgot what they're called. There's a channel, Morg Official, I think is the name of the channel. He's got some interesting ideas. I like him somewhat. He did a video about it, and there's actually some chemicals you can buy online, like pretty much everywhere, that induce lucid or / astral dreaming. And so what's happening? Well, your consciousness, because your body is a tuning fork, it's an antenna, it's a radio for consciousness. If you disable that radio somehow, well, then your consciousness can do other things. Or if you mess with the hardware, you can distort the signal so that what you get has feedback or some other kind of weirdness going on. So when you do those things, when you're messing with those chemicals, when you're doing those things, those rituals before bed, you're kind of setting yourself up to have a lucid dream. And that lucid dream is with the intention of having an astral dream, an astral vision of an astral journey. And so that's what you're going to have. And I know a lot of people don't like that. I know a lot of people are going to be mad and say, no, I know I leave my body. Then tell me what's on my cupboard. Tell me what's on my cabinets. Tell me what's on my shelf. And if you do it, I will have you on the show teaching me how. And we'll have a great time, because I don't mean any disrespect if you really can. I'm just saying, I've been around the world looking for this, and if it is possible, then you're probably in a government program somewhere, and they're using you to count missiles in Russian silos. You're not just sitting around bitching about it on YouTube, right? So astral travel, get rid of the word travel. So what do you have left? Astral. Well, if you study my book, you know that there's the Trinity of Self. It has mind, body, and spirit. And between mind and spirit is the astral world, and between mind and body is the material world. Your mind straddles both on some way, some level. The more materialistic you are, the more your awareness is shifted into the bodily direction. And you don't pay much attention to the spiritual or the astral. Your imagination's kind of piss poor. We all know people like that. We know people who they're so grounded in reality that their imagination even sucks. They can't even think of ideas. They have to hear them. They're not able to be creative. They only have time for money and work, building things, whatever it is that they're doing that's just grunt. Well, then you got those flakes that are floating around in the astral realm all the time. They don't think much about the material, and they're usually homeless, and they're hippie types and all that kind of good stuff, or weirdos like me. Well, to do magic effectively, you actually have to be perfectly aligned between the two, because you need to have, on the one hand, full awareness of the astral, and on the other, full aware of the material, to get your will to manifest in your experience. Manifesting magic in the astral is easy. Manifesting magic in the material is actually not that hard if you use material methods. You can just go, like I said before, and pick up your object instead of trying to do telekinesis. Astral work is just as easy. Imagine what you want, and it is. There's no difference. The astral realm is a realm of ideas, and whatever you can imagine is real there. Even things you can't imagine are real there. Dice says, are you saying the astral is useless for spying? In the traditional sense. Let me put it to you like this, okay? What most of you guys see as the astral is actually a memory of the material that you're using as an operating system for what is in the spiritual sense. Now let me untangle that. There's a video I did a while back about the third eye and what it's actually like to really experience that. And it's not what you think. What you imagine as an astral journey where you're flying through time and space and you're seeing the planet from high above and you go to somebody's house, that doesn't exist. Because what I said before is the astral or the spiritual is literally just an empty form. The true nature of the astral or spiritual realm, the more towards the spirit you go, the less it has of a material component to it. So what is a baseball without the wood core, without the leather surface, without the weight, without the matter in it? What is a baseball? Now you're getting close because you're still picturing it. Now imagine there's literally nothing there. There's no material there to reflect the light back. Is it still a baseball? Well, of course it can be because it's an idea. The astral realm is a realm of pure ideas, of form without substance. And the closer towards the spirit you go, the more that's true. So when you first enter that materialistic astral view, you're not actually seeing what is. You're seeing what you imagine or intuitively understand to be there, and you're overlaying the material side of things. Because let me tell you something. If you were born blind, would your astral world suddenly have sight in it? Probably not. Because you wouldn't have anything to bring with you. That question alone, that answer alone, tells you everything you need to know. This is why people think the afterlife is oblivion and nothingness. Because when you're disembodied, none of your senses work the way they used to. Because you don't have them anymore. You don't have eyes, you don't have ears, you don't have a tongue. You don't breathe, you don't smell, you don't taste, you don't touch. But yet you can still sort of know and sort of feel. So that oblivion suddenly becomes a vivid dream. Because you're remembering what it was like to be alive, and your dream will populate to make it more comfortable for you, because nobody likes that blackness at first. Because it's not even black. It's the absence of black. It's so empty, there's nothing. What does nothing look like? So when you're going into an astral state, what are you doing? You're going into that nothing, but you're bringing with you all these memories of what should be. And you're overlaying them over what you're feeling and believing is there and knowing is there. So, can you use it for spying? In a manner of speaking, you can. As I said before, someone could and has on occasion, like I pointed out in my earlier story, where they traveled to me and they said, I saw you in a book study and you look like you were reading a big book. But I wasn't. I was researching something on the internet. The symbolism was exact. So there I was in a study, YouTube, tons of videos full of the information I was looking for. Probably a screen full of different windows, different tabs with everything I wanted to know. And I take that, and that's my study. And I'm reading, in other words, I'm watching, I'm gazing, I'm imprinting into my mind the things I'm seeing and researching. So I was doing exactly what he said. It was just the context was a little different. I hope I'm making sense now. I hope you guys see what I'm saying. Now, is it possible to do remote viewing? I don't know. I don't think so. Remote viewing is that like Men at Stare Goat style stuff where they don't just astral travel, they visualize things precisely as they are somewhere else. Possible, maybe. There's actually, in a non-dualistic sense, no logical reason for that not to be possible. It's just not a skill I have that I can talk about. So hopefully that doesn't let you down. I'm not Superman. I can't do that. But I don't think it works that way. I really don't. Someone had asked something about a cheeseburger. I think it was Lolan. Can you taste a cheesy cheeseburger in a dream? Lolan, you know my answer. You've been around here so many times watching my videos. You know what I've said about that. But yeah, not really. Not the way you do when you're awake. I've said it to many of my students and friends and things before, like when you're in a dream and you chop your hand off, especially if you've never experienced having your hand chopped off, it's not going to hurt anything like a real hand chopping is going to hurt. A cheeseburger is not going to taste anything like what a real cheeseburger does, but you'll have the idea of what it tastes like in your head. Again, this is a little bit about like what separates me from a lot of other practitioners. They're very materialistic. They don't know it, but they are. They've never actually had that transcendent experience where they know what being disembodied is like. And it's nothing like, oh, I suddenly see everything with my eyes. Nothing like that. It's a knowing. It's a download of sudden gnosis. This is the meaning of the word gnosis. A lot of people don't realize, they think gnosis means knowledge. It is like knowledge, but gnosis is experiential being. So, the difference between knowledge and gnosis is the difference between a virgin and a player who's had much sex in their life. Knowledge is knowing tab A goes into slot B, pump 30 or 40 times, have a nice sleep afterwards. It's a joke. It's usually a little bit more than 30 or 40. Haha. Gnosis is actually doing it and knowing what it's like from an experiential position. So if I tell you I've had gnosis of a spirit, it's given me gnosis. It's filled me with an experience of something. I know it to be true, not in the I read it in a book way, but in the I was there, or they took me on a vision where I saw it and felt it in some way, limited or otherwise. And it's indescribably different, but it's definitely different. So make sure when you're talking, now of course there's also the Chaos Mage Gnosis where you use Gnosis to achieve your spells, or I don't know. Like I said, they've got their own lingo and stuff in that system, which is only partially influential on mine. I only use the very basic stuff that they talk about. Intuitively, I might add, I've always done things like that since I was a kid, including sigils and stuff. Didn't know why, didn't know where, just did. Just who I was. You know, wouldn't it be cool if I took the letters of this word and scrambled them up and made a shape, and then drew a picture around it and made it different? Little did I know. And then I'll use that in a ritual. Wouldn't that be cool? DH, didn't you know that's from Osmond Spare and Chaos Magic? Not until you told me. No, I did not. And you guys will catch me doing that all the time. If you watch my channel enough, you'll catch me in that a lot. It happens all the time. I learn stuff while I'm talking to you guys. Just as much as you think I'm saying stuff that's awesome. I'm learning from you guys, believe it or not. Lowen says, I would come back from the dead and possess a cheeseburger if I couldn't eat one over there. You definitely can, though. I mean, it's just not going to be the same, and you won't mind. When you're dreaming, do you mind that you don't taste the cheeseburger quite as vividly as you do when you're awake? Nah, you're like, fuck it, this is a cheeseburger, this is good. I don't know why it's got a mouse face on one side and a banana coming out the other, but hey, it's a cheeseburger. And that's what your brain does to you. That's what your mind does. That's what your visions do. All right, now you guys are getting more specific with the whose body part or sense would you possess and why? Whose body part would I possess and why? I kind of like where I am. I don't know. I can't think of anybody I'd want to, I don't know. Hillary Clinton. Just give me the whole thing, her eyeball. I want to see, I want to hear, I want to know all the bullshit. That's what I want. I want to get it, I want to write it all down. I want to be the fly in the wall. Fuck the fly on the wall. I want to get it all, and then I'm going to contact Q Anonymous, and we're going to fucking just go, and we're going to, no. But seriously, guys, I hope you guys are laughing at that answer. All right, guys, I'm going to give you guys one more reasonable question, then I'm going to take off for the night, because I'm getting a little burnt out on all the... Some of these are great questions. It's just, you're asking me things that are going to be like hours of conversation. So one more question. First question I answer, that's it. Even if it's just what color I like, that's going to be it. While you guys are typing up your question, let me think. Yeah, while you guys are thinking up your question, If you guys want to support my work, you like my channel, you like my live streams, you like my videos, you can, of course, if you cannot afford to help me out financially, like, share, subscribe. All that's beautiful. I love it. I am a career professional at this. For those of you who are new here, I'm not just pandering for money, guys. This is my life's work. This is all I do. I don't have a second job. I live off of this. And I'm just starting out. So I'm basically minimum wage. So everything you guys contribute really helps me. So even if you can't afford to pay me, help me out with likes and subscribes and things like that. If you like my videos, share them with people responsibly. Don't go putting them into fundamental Christian groups, although hopefully most of the time they'll just ignore it, because a lot of this is protected. I'm actually amazed I have very few haters now. I used to have a couple, and they used to like downvote everything I did. I have like 2 or 3 downvotes on every video I put up, no matter what it was. And now it's like, it's unanimous likes, which is fucking awesome. You guys just blow me away with the support you guys give me. That's really encourages me even without the money. Like, I was doing this for fun because you guys were so cool. And now you guys, that you do help me out financially, it's like, dude, I really will never stop doing this as long as I'm into it. It's not a hobby, it's a lifestyle. And to be able to be paid for a lifestyle, that's like the coolest thing I can ever experience or recommend. That's following your bliss. That is being your divinity. When you are living your dream, literally, then nothing else matters, man. It's all awesome at that point. Even the bad days are good. Even the bad days, I can go into a store and go, yeah, but I'm a professional sorcerer and spiritualist. How many of you people who are giving me an attitude at the store on the checkout line are anything like that? No, you're all wage slaves sucking up the horrible life. Sorry, I'm just going to continue having a great time. I know it's kind of callous of me, but you can't save everybody. So if you guys want to support me, that is an excellent way to do it. Like, share, and subscribe everything that I'm doing. If you want to help me out financially, my preferred ways, if you want to do that, are books. I have my books in the description of all my videos. Go to Amazon. You can purchase both of my books. I have Become the Maelstrom, which is my preeminent premier first book that I wrote. And it is the must-have book. If you are a beginner or even intermediate at magic or even advanced, there's things in there for you that you're going to find useful. It is basically a well-rounded book of magic in its completeness. You're going to have everything from the hows and whys of the basics to some fundamental dogmas that will help you get started without the intention that you adopt those dogmas. It's just a way of looking at things. I had one negative review saying, for a guy who says he doesn't like dogma, he sure says a lot of it. He must have missed the sentence where I said, don't believe everything that I'm saying, rather use it to inspire you to find your own answers. Whatever. Cool. Don't care. I mean, I do care, let's be honest, but it doesn't bother me that bad. So my books are there for the taking. So Become the Maelstrom is the book if you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced and just want to know how to do magic from the beginning. Shadownomicon is for the advanced. Don't fuck with that until you've got some handle on magic and your own shadow. If you go into this with all kinds of problems in your heart and mind and soul and you have a lot of shadow work to do, maybe not the best idea to start, because I've seen it destroy people, quite literally. But if you're reasonably comfortable, you're not a bad person, you don't have a lot of shadows that you're hiding, you're not dealing with a lot of problems in your life, you're kind of stable and you're ready, then hit Shadownomicon up. That's much more advanced. Even though it's a smaller, simpler book, the system it requires you're capable of doing things without me explaining certain things in detail. I shouldn't explain to you how to explain to you how to do energy manipulation in objects and things. You should already know that from my other book. Then following that, we'll see. A couple more books are on the horizon. So if you want to support me that way, those books are awesome. Then I have Patreon and Teespring. I kind of prefer Teespring if you want to help me out, because then you get an object, you get a thing, you get a tapestry like the one that's behind you. This tapestry, of course, is my own magical sigil from Become the Maelstrom, which is highly useful as an altar top or altar tool or ritual chamber tool. You can actually get the big version of this and sit in it on the floor. You can lay it out on a table and make it your altar top. You can hang it in your altar room and use it as a focus for your visual manifestation. Beautiful sigil, I love it. And it came out nice. And then I have some tapestries for Lucifer and some other spirits and just cool shit, so just check it out. And that stuff goes right, to helping me out. I mean, after Teespring gets their cut. Patreon is if you just want to support me and don't care if you get much in return. I am not the most active guy on Patreon because I'm just so busy doing these other things. I'm not the type to just write little nips and blobs and sell them like that. I'd rather on Facebook just share those ideas and make them free, because why should they cost something to hear my blog thoughts? That's silly. So, but if you want to, Patreon's a good place to follow me. And if you're looking for mentorship, that is offered there, but only near the ends of the month. So if you see that there's availability, contact me first privately, so I'll see if I have availability for next month. So if you're interested in mentorship, that's where it is. Mentorship ends up being like magical life coaching. We just talk about everything and magic, politics, the whole freaking show. Whatever's on your mind, we talk about from a magical perspective, a spiritual perspective. If you want consultation work, contact me one-on-one on Facebook, and we'll talk about it. Consults start at $100 for, it's more than an hour. It usually runs like 2 hours, but up to 2 hours. It's like an hour to 2 hours. And magical services are rarely offered, but only if you have a real need and you can't do it yourself. If you're a practicing magician and you contact me, even if you suck at it and you're like, can you do a ritual for me? I'm probably going to say no and just tell you how. I'd rather you learn and do it yourself. But if you're a complete novice and you're like, I need help with this. I don't do rituals for money, sex, or any of that crap. I mostly do ascension-based ritual work. So if you're looking for, say, sacrifice of your sins to Azazel, I got a ritual for that. If you want to become initiated with a spirit, I can help you with that. I want you guys to be empowered, not dependent upon my power to do things for you. And your power is going to be way better in your life than mine is. Can I manifest benefits and opportunities for you? Probably. I usually can, if there's nothing in the way. But if you're going to really have success, you got to do it. Even if you suck at it, try it, and you'll see. Okay, I keep seeing somebody saying Bob has a good question. Let me see Bob's question, and that'll be where we end up, I think. Bob's got a good... Where are you, Bob? It better be a good question, guys. Bob. Okay, I'm assuming it's the meditation question. I'm gonna pretend it's the meditation question. Bob, hey DH, I got cues. I've been meditating for the past 2 weeks and notice each time when I finish, I feel stoned or drained. Is that normal? All right, hopefully that's the right question. So I'm going to start answering it, and I'll be watching for people to say, no, that's not it. Thank you, Andrew, for sending me the message. We'll talk. If I can help you, I will. And don't be offended if I can't. I'm usually listening to my own spirits when I'm talking to you guys going, should I help this person or not? Sometimes I'm not supposed to. So let's keep that in mind. So Bob's question, yeah, everyone's saying, yeah, I got the right question. Okay. All right. Meditation, it depends entirely on your definition of what it is. My own definition of meditation is, number one, that word's overused, but I use it, so let's just play with it. Meditation can be everything from having mindful concentration on something, having a zone-out session where you just kind of daydream, entering a transcendental state, which is how I use the words meditation, or doing empty mind meditation. Okay? I think Coetting's been calling it drop mind. It's a very similar idea. So empty mind meditation is my go-to. That's what I use the most. It's really the only one I need. It's the most powerful, most useful state of consciousness you can be in. Empty mind meditation is where you, through whatever means you like, you learn to develop the ability to clear your mind of all thoughts and visions and everything, and you just be. You just exist. You're just in the moment. You can live, you can work, you can act, you can talk, you can write, you can sing. The only thing I can't do from an empty mind so far is do hard level math in my head. I have to bust out the calculator, but then I don't have to think about it. Somehow I just know what buttons to press. I can't explain it better than that. Because you don't need thoughts to do anything. Because you have to recognize that those thoughts, where do they come from? Did you have to think about a thought to have a thought? Think about that. Did you have to plan a thought to have it? So shut your mind off. That's the most important meditation I can think of. So if that's the kind of meditation you are doing, if that is the kind of meditation that you're doing, a lot of side effects can occur. When you're letting go of that stupid, monotonous, blabbling monkey in your head, did you take the garbage out? Did you do this? That guy at work didn't like you. What do you think about this? Oh, I like how Thorne's background looks. Oh, blah, 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 blah. That's a stress that's constantly bleeding into your system and making you unhappy. That's one of the sources of displeasure is thoughts. It's one of the sources of suffering is thoughts. Suffering is not the experience of pain, it's what you decide it means. It's what you think about. If I punch you in the face and you're in a Zen state, you don't care. Well, you might care. You might go, I don't want to die, I guess. You might react a little bit. But it's been shown, people who are in that state, they're just like, yeah, it hurts. So what? So when you're entering this state frequently, or starting to for the first couple times, your body is still holding on to a lot of tensions, both physical in the form of chemicals, physical in the form of your muscles, mental, like suddenly your brain's not processing things that it's used to. In essence, what you're doing is you're shutting off the left-hand brain and you're letting the right-hand brain take over. And I don't think that's an accurate way to put it, but that's how a lot of people would put it. You're letting your subconscious non-vocal brain take over. And your vocal brain's going to go, no, what about this? We got to keep talking about it. We're not done. And so at first you're going to be, while you're doing it, you'll feel fine. When you're done, though, your other side of your head's going to come roaring back and try to assert and insert itself into everything again. And a lot of the times what happens is you're relaxing. You're letting go. You're like, oh, I'm not thinking about the bullshit. I feel so good. Angry Finger says the enlightened state of meh. Brilliant. Can I quote that from now on? I love that. The enlightened state of meh. That is genius. I fucking love that. Not far off, man. Not far off. But I will tell you, it's blissful at the same time. It's like, meh. This is kind of cool. That's awesome. It's like fuck it all. Come on, everybody. Let's take fuck it all. Or what was it? What was that? What was that video? Fuck it. I think it was fuck it. He's just breathe in and fuck it. Fuck that shit. I'll find that one. I'll post it on my Facebook. I fucking love it. That's a great video. Fuck that fucking shit right in its fucking ass. All right. So when you've done that a little bit and you're going through that experience and you're just chilling out in your own being and you've let go, all of those nightmares are still there. And when you come back down, if you come back down, and you come back down into the embodied mental state, well, that's the first thing that's standing there tapping its toe, like, where the fuck were you? Well, that's not just for negative thoughts and anger. It can also be for exhaustion, for mental stress, for feeling tired. Your body's finally relaxing. And sometimes that makes you tired because you need to rest. Keep in mind that meditation is not something you should do intentionally for your whole life. Meditation is medicinal rather than dietary. That's what Alan Watts would say. But that is also flying in the face of actually what it is meant to be. Your natural state of being is the empty mind, the drop mind, the mindless state. That is your natural state. So what the meaning of that statement is, you shouldn't be doing it all the time, on purpose, basically, is you shouldn't be doing it on purpose all the time. At some point, you should be assuming a natural state of awareness where you're not constantly thinking. Or at least not at the mercy of thoughts. You should be able to, at will, just go back to that mindless state and be confident and happy. When I'm at my worst, I'm thinking. When I'm at my best, I'm not. Without any doubt, question, or hesitation, my books have almost all been written from a no-mind state, especially the first half of Become the Maelstrom. That first several chapters in Foundation. Almost entirely just bzzz, in the zone. No thought, just writing. Like channeling, but without a spirit going, say this. It's just bzzz, downloading from wherever I'm getting it, right onto the screen. Now, other forms of meditation, if you're doing mindfulness, where you're, really like you're focusing on something, very useful kind of meditation. Teaches you to focus, teaches you clarity. Very good stuff. That actually is like a form of no mind in its own sense. If you're only thinking about one thing intentionally, it's not that different from thinking about nothing. Because at some point, when you think about one thing long enough, it goes away. Kind of like like if you wear it, kind of like an itch. If you focus on an itch, it really fucking itches. But eventually it still goes away, doesn't it? So long as you don't scratch it, it will eventually go, or if you do scratch it. But I'm saying even if you don't scratch it, it will go away. Thoughts can be like that. If you focus on one thought long enough, it'll fade. It'll start shifting into other thoughts. And what I find useful is if you go into that focused state and then stop doing it, for a brief moment you're in the empty mind state almost every time. And you can use that to learn how to get into that state without trying. It just happens. And of course the other kind is when you're just kind of daydreaming, you're just kind of like, zoned out and you see stuff. In all of those examples, you can have those side effects because your body is no longer stuck into that echo pattern of thinking. So if you're in a focused state, you're now focused on one thing, you're not allowing bad thoughts to echo, and you're just yourself while you're doing it. When you're zoning out and you're daydreaming and you're seeing dogs in the clouds and spirits around you and stuff, worrying about work is not happening all of a sudden. So you're closer to your natural state at that point. Closer. It's all a form of mental relaxation in a way. Even that focused state is a form of mental relaxation, whether you realize it or not. It's like stretching. If you stretch, you're tensing the shit out of something and then letting it go. Now you're relaxed. So yeah, you're going to feel tired. You're going to feel drained. You're going to feel exhausted. Very likely. Very likely. At least for a little while. Me, I don't, because I don't do it like that anymore. I can just go empty. Nothing. There's no before, after, or during. It's just I'm always that way and thoughts arise in that. That's when you get to that level where it's like, oh, my thoughts don't come out of anywhere. They're not originating from anywhere. I am an emptiness and thoughts just arise. They just appear like smoke, just appearing in nothingness. They're like ducks flying over a still pond. The pond doesn't have any ducks on it. The mind is like that still pond. It's reflecting what is experiencing, but it is not generating the experience. When you're doing that, you're how do I put this? It's like being a fish and not knowing that there's something up above the top of the water, and you just poked your head up a little bit. That's a lot like what it tends to be like once you get it. Once you realize that you are that still pond and that everything you experience is a reflection on it, the roller coaster gets fun. All right, guys, everybody pretty much tuned out. We're down to 30 people. Once again, if you guys want to support me, everything's in the description. I appreciate you guys a whole lot. I hope I got to everybody's most important questions. And, of course, you can find me on Facebook. I don't respond to all strangers, so send me a friend request. If I get to it, I get to it. I'm getting close to 4,000 people on Facebook. I do try. I'm not saying callously I don't check. I'm just saying I don't get to all of them. Begging doesn't get you anywhere. If you have needs, just talk to me, and we'll see. And if I can help you, I'll help you. It's that simple. I do like to help. It's partially why I'm doing this. It's not just to serve myself. I'm here to have the experience of helping people. So that's part of the fun. So anyway, guys, I will check you guys probably the same time next week. I'm trying to do these every Thursday. And until then, mind the shadows.